What's going on, everybody? Here we are. Everything's broken. Everything is broken. Everything is broken. Everything is broken. Everything was broken, and now it's not. Hello. We're back. Wow. What an intro. Everything is broken. I pushed I went to the full PC capture scene instead of the scene with my face if you're watching the video version. And then OBS completely stopped responding for about 12 seconds, so I wasn't even sure if you were hearing me, but I kept going because that's what a professional does. He keeps coming. And here we are. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. This is the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It's Tuesday, and that means it's time for a podcast. It is the humidity here in this room is 48%, which is fine. This humidifier connects to the Wi-Fi, and then I can use my phone to set, like, turn it on or off, or I have it set to where if it gets down to about 34%, it kicks on. And it hasn't kicked on in a while. It's been a little bit more humid here lately, but not so much that you'd notice. I don't know. It's been cloudy. It's been a little drizzly at times, and all of that. So it's, you know, it's kind of what passes for like a little cozy sort of time here before Southern California becomes 90 degrees for about 3 months, and it's unpleasant. So it's nice to have a little bit of a reprieve here before we really get going. So I don't know, man. I kind of just want to talk about this up front and because I don't really have that much to say at this point. But it's been the thing that people have been kind of asking about a bunch. And so I'll kind of say my piece. I was on the VGBs podcast over at vgbs.com last week, and it turned out to be the day that people, I think I'm trying to, I don't even know how to frame it, right? The day that I guess people became aware that there was some kind of situation happening with giantbomb.com, which was a website about video games, founded sometime in 2008. So yeah, I don't know, man. So I was on the VGB's podcast and kind of took my first crack at talking about it there, but it was all so weird, and Nikki was on the show, and I think they were not 100% clear on where things were at that point either. And so I don't know, it was just a weird, I don't know, and I don't think that there's been a ton of clarity. I don't think there's been a ton of clarity since then in terms of what's going on. But if you haven't heard, it sounds like that of all the things to do, of all the ways for it to go, it sounds like that, I don't know, it sounds like the company that owns that website now, which is a company that specializes in really fucking terrible wiki sites, just absolute garbage, got it in their head that they needed to have, they needed to rein things in a little bit. You can't have people on streams talking about thick thighs in Marvel Rivals or whatever the fuck it was. It's just you can't have people out here jacking off standees or whatever. To which I would say, to me, giantbomb.com was a website founded on the idea of jacking off standees. So at some point it's well, what the fuck did you buy, stupid? But what the fuck was it? I guess is the actual the actual thing here is what was that website? What was it? What were they doing? What's actually going on and all of that. My perspective is this, and this is my perspective as someone who has not worked there for coming up on, I don't know, 3 years, whatever it is, like 3 years, 4 years, whatever it's been. And my feeling is that it was always going to end exactly like this. It was always going to, there was no way where that website was going to suddenly like thrive. There was a 0% chance that that thing was going to be like rebuilt in a way that recaptured what it was. And that's not me saying like, because what we did was, so, you know, no, it's, and really, like, I want to put a time on this. What I'm talking about really is about over the last 4 years. That's when did I know that this thing was never going to make the recovery that we were trying, that we were, you know, that I was at least pushing to make. It was basically the same time my son was born. So that's about, it's coming up on 4 years. That's a little over 3.5 years ago. I was on paternity leave, or I was supposed to be on paternity leave. This company had a real habit of having a bunch of shit happen right around the time I had a kid, such that I was not able to take fucking my actual paternity leave. CBS did it to me. Red Ventures did it to me. I did it to myself ultimately. I think I could have just like not answered the phone. But so what, I'm trying to like, okay. So we were operating in that period there where Vinny and Brad and Alex took off until, you know, the sale of the company and some of this other stuff. The basic idea was like, okay, we just, you know, we need some time to fuck around. Like we need some time to kind of find it again, and we need to hire people. Like we haven't hired people in a very long time. Even, you know, we were shorthanded before those guys. We were shorthanded before those guys left. And so it was a feeling of like, if this thing's going to go at all, if this thing's going to have any kind of shot, like we need some time to kind of figure it out, but also we need to hire people. Like we, you know, this is like, there's, with the team this small as it was even before those guys left, it was too fucking small to operate like a premium content brand to be like, oh, we're going to make like extra special videos for people who pay us, and we're going to make free stuff for people that hopefully attracts them to, you know, sign up and do other things. There just weren't enough people to cover both of those bases at all. And so it was stressful. It was fucked. I mean, it was a fucking bad situation, but like everyone knew that, right? It was like, okay, well, you know, all right, we're going to, like, obviously, you know, talking to the guy that was my manager at the time, like he, you know, he's not dumb. He was like, yeah, you need people. Like we talked for a while about like, okay, we were going to move Jean-Luc over full time from GameSpot onto Giant Bomb, because we had worked with him and he's awesome. And so I was like, okay, well maybe we could do that. I mean, you know, that's not enough, but Jan needs some backup. He needs someone to do video stuff and so on and so forth. And so it was a lot of talk like that. It was like, okay, we're going to get to a point where we're going to hire up. But also, we had just been acquired by a company who put a hiring freeze in place. And so it was like, okay, all right, I guess we're going to sit here and fucking spin plates for a while, and we'll figure it out. And so, I don't know, you know, you could judge how well it got figured out or not. I have a lot of thoughts on that, but this podcast is only 3 hours long. But right around the time my son was born, I was going to take paternity leave. We set it up. So I think like Ben was going to be on the podcast and Jan was going to host or whatever the situation was. And then that ended up not happening or whatever. I got a phone call from a coworker who was panicked saying, hey, they're looking at the books and they're saying that we are losing a ton of fucking money. And it was like, oh, okay. I should probably get on a phone call and hear about that, because what? Because the whole thing was predicated on, we need some runway. We need to get to a point where we are going to rehire. And my previous manager, I had a conversation with him This is a little bit before that phone call comes in. So sorry, I'm a little out of order here. And he asked me, this is like I had moved down here and we had talked a little bit about like, oh, what if we did a studio in LA and we hired people down here? And, like there, it was loose talk, but it was like, that was kind of the running idea was like, maybe we do a thing in LA if the pandemic lets up and we put a staff down here. And I had a bunch of ideas around that. And he said like, hey, what are you up for? Like, are you ready to fucking do? And I'm like, dude, I think, and I wanted to be like, dude, if I was going to, like, if I wasn't down to fucking try and fix this fucking thing, I would have left the minute I moved, because you can't get a home loan without 2 years of employment history. And so I had to move and then quit, which was definitely a thought. Absolutely 100% a thought. But like, it was like, okay, if we can fix this thing, that's like an interesting challenge. And so maybe fixing this thing and staying here and doing this is an option. So like I was up for it, and he said, okay, cool. This was like September-ish. This was August, September-ish. And he said, okay, well, we'll let's plan to hopefully start hiring early next year. And so I was like, cool. All right, we'll get to early next year. We'll start hiring up. I had talked about bringing in Jeff Grubb, who was already doing like a show for us. And I was like, maybe, does that make sense to do something full time? And then on the other end of all of this stuff falling apart, I think I became more of like, hey, does Grubb know that this place is fucking fucked? Like, before you go and hire him, he should know that it's fucking bad. Because this money situation had changed. Now, the problem with a small company and a big organization, this is something that we ran into at CBS. A big company makes you pay for every bit of thing that they do. And so every dollar you make gets chopped up a zillion different ways across a zillion different parts of the company. And so we're paying some percentage of money for the CEO's salary, the public relations department, the rent on the building that we're in, power, like it all of these central costs kind of come up. And so we were in a position at CBS for a lot of years where we were contributing to these central costs and seeing zero benefit from it. In fact, like it felt like the PR team was going out of their way to not include us on things that would have made sense for us to, like I had been on all kinds of television over the years. They, at one point, got me on satellite radio. I was on Lord Sears' program on Shade 45, which was great fun. And then they kind of just dropped the ball and stopped following up on it. Like the PR team just kind of fucking ghosted on it and it all went away. And I was like, well, this was like a really fun thing I was doing. And I guess it's fucking gone now because they couldn't be bothered to return a phone call. I don't know what it was. It was so, over time, you're just like, okay, we work for this big company, but we're seeing like almost zero benefit from working in a big company. And so we had someone running the business side of things. His name was Stan, and Stan was fantastic. And Stan went to war on these central costs. He went to the general manager of the group, and because we're part of the games group, so it's like GameFAQs, GameSpot, a handful of other sites. And so he went to war and said like, hey, this PR team is not doing anything for us. We shouldn't have to pay for it. Or, hey, we're not seeing any benefit from this. We think that you should stop charging us for this. And so over time, he was able to push back on a lot of these central costs, and we stopped having to pay a lot of them that were not useful to us, or rather that were ignoring us. And that helped a lot. That got us to a point where we could hire up a little bit and bring some more people in and replace some heads and stuff. This was, this is all the way back in the CBS days. They decided to lay off Stan while I was on my honeymoon. It's about 10 years ago now. And so let's say I've been pissed for about 10 years because they kept doing shit to me when I was out of the office. They kept fucking with they like, it was almost like they were waiting for me to fucking turn my head away. Like, oh, we had a kid. Cool. Let's fuck this thing over. It was a really bad run. with that stuff specifically. I don't know, coincidence or not, but who knows? Almost certainly coincidence. So like we knocked down all those central costs. The phone call, hey, they took a look at the books and what the fuck is going on, was, oh, this company that we have been sold to does not do the books that way and is going to do the books a completely different way. They're going to look at things completely differently than CBS did. And as such, you are underwater by a massive amount. I was like, oh, okay. And so I had the conversation, like I came, I abandoned my paternity leave. My wife was super happy about that. And started, calling into meetings and all this other stuff to figure out what was going on. By this time, I was reporting to a new guy who was a ghost. I never heard from him ever, which was bad. And it became clear that this is the way they do the books now, and this is how they view this business. They already didn't view the business super charitably. They had some ideas about it. Like everyone, when people buy Giant Bomb, they make a big deal about it like it's the cool thing. And so the CEO wears you send T-shirts to the guy and he shows up on the company meeting and he's wearing a Giant Bomb jersey because he's fucking edgy and he knows what's going on. It's like, fuck you. These fucking people. It's just embarrassing. And so for a while there was a little bit of interest after the sale of the company. It was like, okay, well, maybe there's something here. And there was talk about like, oh, there was a guy who had worked at satellite radio for a while. And he was like, maybe you could start like a satellite radio channel or do this. And I'm like, yeah, dude, that'd be fucking sick. Like, I can't do that. Like, I don't have the inroads to do that, but you do. And then, so he made that suggestion and then was moved to a different team and no one ever heard from him again. It was like, okay. All right, cool. I guess that's not going to happen then. So it was just a weird, that was a weird time, the sale of the company. But there was a minute there where you're like, okay, CBS clearly doesn't care about anything in this whole division. Maybe this new company who just bought it will. And so, I made some pitches about new shows and new expensive stuff. And there was a guy there that was higher up that they said, oh, he really gets podcasts. And so I'm like, awesome. Let me talk to the guy who gets podcasts. I talked to him and pitched him on this whole big thing. It was actually I gave him the pitch of the thing that I was prepared to leave and go do at the time. This is before a lot of funding situations changed that kind of prevented me from doing that on my own. But I gave them the pitch. I gave them the, this is the thing I didn't say this is the thing I was going to quit to do. But it was like, here's what I think could be a vision and a way forward for this sort of content. And it was the most lackadaisical, oh yeah, is that something you think you could do with your existing boss and all this other stuff? And I want to say fucking no. But instead I was like, maybe, I don't know. He's like, okay, cool, bye. And that was that. Zero excitement. But you also, remember that they had just bought CNET and they had just bought GameSpot, but all they really wanted was CNET. The other stuff kind of gets thrown in. They're buying CNET. And they've done a bang up job with CNET so far. So, it becomes clear, okay, well, this company doesn't really have any real interest in spending any money, which is what it's going to take to get this thing back on its feet. And then when the management situation changed and the view of the business changed again, it became immediately clear, this is done. This is it. There's not going to be any investment. The thing I needed was 4 people. And so I kept saying, you need to let me hire 4 people. If you want to get this thing back on its feet, you need to let me hire 4 editors. And we need to move a producer over from GameSpot. We need to do that. It was I need people that want to talk about video games. I need people that want to cover video games on this video game website. Cause right now it's me. And Jan, every week on the podcast, Jan would have miraculously played multiple games and I had played multiple games. And I was like, okay, cool. At least we've got that. So yeah, but it was clear that they were not going to give the investment that it needed to go. And so I was in a situation where it was just like, okay, like for me to stay here and fix this, I need more money than this, because like, it's like, I don't, it's a reputation, like whatever, man. It's like at some point it's like, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit here and fix this thing, or is it beyond repair? If I'm going to sit here and fix this thing, you need to make me whole. And also you need to let me hire a bunch of fucking people, because what the fuck, dude? Like, there's just no way. Like, if you want to recover this thing and make premium content and set it apart from GameSpot and make it something that it makes sense for it to exist in a world where GameSpot also exists and is also not doing great, then this is what needs to happen. And so I made that pitch to pretty much deaf ears, and it never got brought up again. And again, the guy I was reporting to at the time wouldn't respond to email. Like, I just didn't hear from the guy. I had 2 meetings with him. One was my performance review, where he said, if you could make 1 more video a week, and I just started laughing. And then the second one was where him and his boss showed up to fire me. I was like, cool. Before that, it was like group meetings and stuff where nothing got done, because it was mostly me explaining why. Like, I don't think that like getting sponsored gamer chairs is really a way forward for this business. I don't think that that's necessarily a huge opportunity. And so, that's how I look at it, is just like, from that moment where it was clear that they were not going to hire anyone, it became obvious that like, okay, this thing was done. And so I started exploring external options and, thinking about like, well, what would I do if I wasn't doing this? And, some people I'd worked with before were out at other companies doing stuff and had some pretty good meetings and got an offer and decided not to go that way and blah, blah, blah. And then that was that, and I was ready to leave, because it was clear again that like they were never going to invest in it to the degree that made sense. And like, I can't necessarily fault them for that, like I can make my pitch and whatever, but like, remember that they're managing multiple businesses, and GameSpot has never been, I don't remember the last time GameSpot was doing well, like 2006, like money wise. I don't mean content. Keep in mind, like, at no point am I weighing in on like, I think their content is like, I'm not, it's not about that. Like, there have always been people in those seats doing good work and trying to make things happen and everything else. But from a business perspective, if GameSpot was doing great, CBS would not have bought us in the first place. Their whole pitch originally, which was gross, like we were brought in for like insane reasons, and maybe that should have been a negative indicator right out of the gate. But like, I think they, from their perspective, the management of GameSpot was looking at things and saying like, everything has moved in this video direction. The staff we have on GameSpot right now is really dragging their feet on doing anything like that on camera stuff. I don't know that we have the right personalities in play. Like they had just a lot of thoughts about that stuff. And I think they hoped that we were going to come in there and like rub off on them. It was literally like a term that was used, that we would come in and we would be like, let's have fun about video games on camera, and that people would be excited about it without realizing that like, hey, I don't know, man, the staff of this website's been treated like dog shit for a really long time. Maybe that's why they don't really want to work with you and have a great time right now, because the management in place was maybe not awesome. I don't know. Like I wasn't really privy to all that. Either way, the 2 people that were mostly responsible for us coming to CBS were gone in like, I want to say like the first year. And so that's kind of the other thing that is the long-term story of that website under other ownership, is you need to have people who know why it's there. Otherwise, like if you're a fresh face coming into that group, you look at it and you go like, why do we have 2 of these? Why is there 2 websites producing content about video games? Why does that exist? And so the pitch became more of like, well, okay, Giant Bomb's going to make like high-end premium content, and then GameSpot will be like ESPN. It'll be like Showtime and ESPN. Does that make sense? And that was kind of the internal concept for a long time, and sort of how that stuff operated. And new managers would come in and they would basically understand it, but that didn't mean that they would invest in it. Because again, GameSpot was perpetually losing money. And so like if you had $5 to spend, you would spend $4.75 of that on GameSpot, because if you could fix GameSpot, it was a much bigger potential windfall. Like if you could find a way for GameSpot to work again and make money again, then it's a much larger base to go off of. Whereas like at the time, back under CBS, like Giant Bomb was profitable and we couldn't even get the type of investment in us that being profitable in a company where almost nothing was profitable, where you would think that they would go like, let's try going with this. Like, no, instead it was like, okay, GameSpot is still on fire, so we're going to keep dumping money onto that problem and see how it goes. And so, you know, that's how it always was. And that's how I'm sure it's still that way, right? I'm sure there's still an aspect of like, you know, there's probably like whatever's happening over there. And I should say, like, I don't necessarily have any, like, I don't have much more information than you do. And when it comes to publicly available information or whatever. And so there are things about this that I'm not really 100% sure about, you know, where things stand. I'm pretty sure I know which way they're going to go. But like, fandom bought GameSpot. Giant Bomb was probably the thing that got thrown in literally for free. Like, oh, well, if you're buying the group, you get all the websites. And they had to sit there and look at it for a long time and go, what do we even have here? The thing I said to Dan, and I think Dan agreed with me when he was going in, because he and I had a conversation basically the day after they told me I was out. They were like, by the way, we're talking to someone about bringing him in. We're talking to Dan Reichert. I was like, okay, all right. And by the time I talked to him, he'd already accepted the offer, which was like, oh, okay, all right. But it was this idea of just like, you know, maybe this thing should be folded into GameSpot at this point, like from just like at some point the brand has just been beat up so long for so many years. And like, if you're not going to be a premium, like if you're not going to try to sell subscriptions to videos, if that's no longer part of the business, it probably shouldn't exist anymore from just a literal, like, it just doesn't make sense. And that's been true for a few years now. Right. And they didn't go in that direction because, you know, things are brand new and no one wants to make any drastic changes to the thing they just bought until they feel like they understand it or whatever. So maybe it's a situation where they felt like they understood it and they're like, okay, we need to find a way to get this thing away from, you know, whatever happened. So I don't know, like ultimately, like I don't have, you know, this isn't about like, so hopefully this gives you like the historical context for what I feel is like a years long thing, you know, like it's easy to look at this moment as a moment, but like I look at it and go, yeah, this was something that could have happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And you would have been like, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I would have gone and worked for GameSpot. If the option was, hey, you get to be a guy on GameSpot right now, I think I don't know that I would have been comfortable doing that. I talked about the website being a failure, and I think a lot of people misconstrued what I mean by that. And I think the thing you have to remember is we founded that website specifically as a thing that is extremely not GameSpot. We were sick of GameSpot. GameSpot fucked people over. We were, you know, like when I was upstairs with the engineers and we were coming up with names and, you know, like talking to the business side of things, like all of us were in agreement. Fuck that place. Like, fuck that shit. What the fuck? And so it was very much a, designed to be the exact opposite of that thing. And so when you have to take that thing and then sell it to the thing that you were supposed to be raging against, it's a failure, you know? The other thing I would say in a similar vein is I always really believed in the wiki. That was something that, never really got a ton of attention. I think a lot of the people that I worked with on like the content side of it didn't really have an interest one way or the other in it. But I certainly did. I loved that thing. And so part of it for me was like, let's have a really great wiki. And, because there are, at the time it was different companies, but like it was very much like a lot of the wiki companies out there, companies that are out there trying to be like commercial wiki companies, are fucking trash. They're fucking terrible. Like the eHows or whatever the companies were then. They are, covering pages in a zillion different ads. Like it's not helpful, like they're having restrictive licenses on people's content. Like, let's try to not do that. And so that was the whole pitch for like when they were building Comic Vine and when they were building Boompa, the car site, and all this other stuff, and Anime Vice and whatever. It was that idea of just like, hey, let's make some cool, really great wiki software and database, like all of that sort of stuff. And so now for it to have been since purchased by a company responsible for some of the worst wikis in the world, some of the ugliest wiki software you've ever used, and coded in so many ad units that it's just setting your computer on fire when you load it up. That's a failure. Point blank. Like of the stated goals when we founded this thing being this idea of, I don't know, rebelling is like a weird, I don't know, like you could say, and this romanticizes it too much. And so it's like, whatever. I don't, it's a thought, but it's like, it's a very indulgent one. This was ECW, and then it lived long enough to become WWE's version of ECW, right? I mean, it became like the corporate clean version of ECW, in a weird way. That's, I don't know, that's not an amazing metaphor, I don't think, but in a general sense, I might subscribe to some piece of that. And so that's like, I don't know. So I take the long view on this stuff. I look at this stuff and like this was the most slow motion car crash I've seen in a very long time. And you look at it and go like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. Like nothing about this is especially surprising. The specifics around it being a content thing is surprising to me, because that's super dumb. But whatever. And it's also like, it's not about me. Like, who cares, man? Like I've been out of there for 4 years. And so like people ask me a lot about it, and people, there's been people who've come to me over the last like 4 or 5 days and be like, oh man, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. I don't work there anymore, man. Like it's my complicated feelings about that brand and that business are, have been complicated for a very long time. And maybe this will eventually provide some closure to those feelings or something, but like, it's not about me. Like, this is like, I didn't work there. This is about Jan. This is about Dan and Grub. This is about the people who were working there and making content and making stuff, like, it's not like I'm far enough removed from it that, again, like I have this long view of this stuff, so, so all it's really done is like it's brought the frustrating conversations that I've had over the years that you look at in retrospect and go like, this was another sign that this thing was done. I could walk that back. Like 4 years is really, I think the that 3-4 year period there, I could walk back and say like, clearly this is where there was 0% chance of it turning around. But I think you could extend, like I think of conversations I had over the years that were good indicators of just like, nope, this is finished. This is it. When we were, like when a few years after we got bought by CBS and we spent a bunch of time trying to get them to understand why they should sponsor podcasts and why they should let us sign an ad deal with a podcast ad network because it would bring in money. and like their reluctance to do that, combined with like the head of engineering telling us that the podcast was really draining a lot of bandwidth and we should consider stopping it or making it shorter or something. I was like, this insane moment of just like, dude, I made popular content. That's supposed to be my job. It's up to other people to figure out how to sell it. Like, it's not like what, like fucking, but like that's a clear indicator of just like, okay, this company is not set up to take advantage of what we're doing and make it make money for everybody, which, would have been bittersweet, I guess, at a certain point, because, when you don't own it anymore, all that money just goes to CBS. But it would have helped us grow. It would have helped us, achieve bigger things. And so I look at it as like, there were moments there where it was like, this thing could be bigger than it is, and it deserves to be. And it, and we make money in a way that I think is really interesting. And if people paid attention to that and just got the fuck out of our way, that I think we could do something really special. But like it's a big company like CBS and a big company like the further future owners of it, we're never going to do that. That was just not the people they were, not the company they were. The whole CNET thing was cursed from day one. When CBS bought CNET, Wall Street decided that they paid too much for it, and they never let them forget it. So anytime CNET came up in the news or came up in any kind of financial context, even when it was doing great, a lot of the financial reporting around it was a reminder of just like, CBS overpaid for this internet asset. And so CBS was always really gun shy to tout any of the successes that came out of that division until the TV thing came along, I think. But I don't know. Like, I always got the impression that they were, they were immediately like, oh, we fucked up by buying this thing and Wall Street hates us now and we're never going to pay attention to it or blah, 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 blah. So then, you take all the years and you trickle that down to, like, that's them talking about CNET. What makes you think they're ever going to care about GameSpot? And now take that another layer down after they acquire us. Like, why would anyone ever care about this thing? And so, it just kind of is what it is. Like that, if that company had been able to stay small and stay independent for another few years, I think that the economy on the internet and whatever, I think if it had stayed afloat for a few years, I think there would have been a better ecosystem in place for a company the size of Giant Bomb to be successful. And hopefully you don't read that. Like, what I don't mean is, we were ahead of our time. I think like people that found shit get really fucking dumb about that. And they're like, we were just ahead of our time. Like, I think there's an aspect to it that, like, again, the ecosystem's developed in such a way that we would have had different tools to take advantage of and whatever in the future. Like when we started, YouTube was barely a thing. So we couldn't even, like, we had to go negotiate a hosting deal for videos, and it was, it was just a very different environment in 2007, 2008. So whatever. Again, I it's not like that I think is the groundwork. That is the all of the things that lead up to this moment. I think that's the environment that those guys found themselves in all these years later, was working for a company that bought it from a company that bought it from a company that bought it from the company that founded it. All of the management changes, all of the this, all of the that, like, again, like you put any fucking middle manager in any kind of position there and sit them down in front of this group and say, look at this. The first thing they're going to say is, oh man, why are there two of these? And for a long time, we had the type of content that made for a differentiator and at least could help us explain the case. But they don't really have that anymore. They stopped. They didn't have enough people. Even when I was there, we didn't have enough people to make that to continue to keep that wall up. And so you just look at it and go like, yep. It's it is what it is. I don't know. It's a shame. Again, like I think that Jan and Grubb and Dan, whatever those guys, assuming, like, again, all we really know is that Grubb has said he's not there I don't know if Jan and Dan are still there in some capacity or what the deal is. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but I think regardless of the situation, I think that those three are very talented individuals that will find something, you know, like Jan. Most of all, Jan knows how to operate a camera and work gear. He does more than just smile into a camera. He could do that too, but yeah, I don't know. I look at that stuff and you know, I think the three of them will figure something out, even in an environment, even in a tough environment such as this. I think that they will figure something out. And that's kind of it. I don't know. Like that's maybe more. That's longer than I expected to talk about it, but also. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't have like I kind of look at the current situation and go, yeah, this was always how it was going to go. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back. We'll talk about some video games. I don't know. Might as well, right? Sometimes you just get in that mode where you've got to keep moving. You don't have time to stop and prepare a whole meal and sit down and eat and go and blah, blah, blah. Factor has nutritious 2-minute meals, and eating well has never been this easy. You just heat it up and enjoy it, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of sitting around and prepping food. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any lifestyle. They've got 45 weekly menu options, so you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. You know, if you're looking to do something that's calorie smart, or you're looking for protein plus or keto, they've got those options and more. They also have satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this spring. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. They got these smoothies. Like if you're just looking for something, I need to grab this and I need to go. They've got like, you know, protein smoothies, and they've got some great juices and all that other stuff that you can just, you know, grab the bottle and make it happen. Are you ready to make it happen? Get started at factormeals.com/JeffG50off and use the code JeffG50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code JeffG50off at factormeals.com/JeffG50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Maze Mice is but one of the video games I have been playing recently. The Luck Be a Landlord developer has made a new game called Maze Mice. It's weird, and that's kind of the only reason I want to talk. I don't know that I would say it's a great game, but it's $9. It's on Steam. It's in early access, and so here's this pitch. This is, and I didn't realize this going in. But I sat down to play it, and it was like, okay, it's like a maze game with mice, and time only moves when you do. I'm like, okay, well, I liked Super Hot, so let's try that. What if someone took Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, and then they added in weapons and power-ups that were similar to something like a Vampire Savior, and then also made it so the game completely stops when you stop moving? That is Maze Mice. You walk around and you get power-ups and you eat a bunch of the mice out of the maze, but also there are ghost characters coming in from the sides that go over the walls, and you need to shoot them. So you need your Vampire Survivor-esque weapons and upgrades and power-ups to deal with them. And then also when you let go of the controller, everything stops. So, you know, it's not like it can be an action game if you never stop moving, or you can stop and go like, oh, I can't go that way because this ghost is going to be, I will bump into this guy if I do that. And so I need to do this and move around. It's a really neat like concept that after I played a few runs of it, I don't know that it's something that I am going to play a ton of after this, but you should at least, again, because it's such a specific thing and it feels like such a specific amalgamation of a few very clear concepts, that combination is fascinating. And so I think if you're interested in like that type of like, here's this fascinating concept for a game, you should go at least watch the trailer for Maze Mice. It's out now in early access. Again, it's like $9. I have been playing iRobot a little bit here and there. It is Jeff Minter's new game. It is a remake of an arcade game that Atari released in the 80s called iRobot. In the original iRobot, you had to color in these tiles by walking on them, and you could jump from like across gaps, but there was also this gigantic eye in the background, and if the eye was open and you jumped, it would kill you. And it was one of the first polygonal games I ever saw. And so it had this really insidious look, this giant fucking polygonal eye in the background that opens and closes and zaps you, and it's polygon madness. Jeff Minter's remake is like that, but then also, you know, kind of, I think his kind of traditionally trippy style added to it. It's got a bunch of kind of bonus content, you know, like bonus levels and different types of gameplay in there on top of the basic kind of iRobot jumping and coloring in stuff gameplay, which is already weird because, you know, because of the perspective, the camera perspective, it being this, it's like you're sitting behind the level looking at it over you, and so sometimes your character goes over and under things in a way that, you know, your visibility is obscured. Jeff Minter's games, I think, that kind of psychedelic vibe that he finds, that he's kind of, you know, that he puts into a lot of these games, generally speaking, I feel like a lot of it has been upbeat and positive and uplifting. There is like a minor key vibe to iRobot, I think, again, because it's got this giant murderous eye in the background at all times. There is a sinister darkness to iRobot that Jeff Minter's games don't normally have. And it's powerful and almost off-putting. There's a darkness to this game that scares me when I play it, if that makes any sense. That isn't present in other recent releases from Jeff Minter, from Llamasoft. And so it's got such a different feel to it because of that. And it's a lot, man. Like all of his games, there's a whole lot happening on screen at all times. It's fucking bonkers. And sometimes just plucking out what is actually happening amidst the backgrounds and everything else that is happening around you can be difficult. But there again, it's sinister in a way that I think Llamasoft's Tempest games and Space Giraffe and just like anything that, you know, a Polybius and a lot of the stuff that they have made recently, this takes things in a somewhat different direction. Like same concept, but again, like tuned to a minor key in a way that is just off-putting enough to where you feel it up your back. Like, oh. Let's take one more break. I gotta go. That first segment was a little long, so I gotta catch up on these breaks, and then we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about some other video games. Spring is in the air, and you know what that means. The weather is warming up, and you know what that means. Your body smells like a toxic waste dump. What are you going to do about it, huh? Why don't you check out Mando Whole Body Deodorant? Mando is safe to use anywhere on your body. It's not just for armpits. You know, you can put it on your armpits if that's a particularly sensitive zone for you in the stink on the stink meter, but it's whatever you need it. You know, your belly button, where you like the top of your butt crack, you know, you got stinky feet, you can put it down there. You got, you know, between your thighs, I don't know, you know, like what, all through the zone, the dick and balls area. If you are unhappy with how that area smells, put a little Mando on it. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. So Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. And it comes in both forms. You need a solid stick. That's right. It's formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it starts. There's also a spray, which is aluminum-free and ideal for hard-to-reach places. These products are baking soda-free and paraben-free and come in a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji Pro Sport. Also an unscented. If you're, not really into smelling like anything, that works as well. It's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. 12 hours after a shower, you're at like a 5 out of 10 on the stink meter or something, right? With Mando, the average is a 0 out of 10. Do you want to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now? Yeah, I know you do. You can find it in Walmart, Target, and other retailers across the country, but for the best deals, go to shopmando.com. And now there's an even better deal. You can get Mando's starter pack. It's perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for you, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with this exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use the code JeffG at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Support the show. And please tell them we sent you. Smell fresher. Please stay drier. And boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, everybody, we are back. If you want to support the show and get an ad-free version of the podcast and some bonus content and a weekly bonus podcast and all of that sort of stuff, you can head over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. And there are a lot of different tiers. You could suggest games for the Friday NES rankings and all of that stuff. And, there's all sorts of stuff there. Go there for more details. Patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Skin Deep is also out. Skin Deep is the new Blendo Games game. And I have been playing a chunk of that. I've played some of it. I guess I can say I have been playing Doom. We will talk about that at a later date. But these are all games I played before Doom showed up, and I've been working my way through that. Skin Deep is a cool kind of, it is a very tightly compacted immersive simulator, if you will. You are an insurance adjuster who is there to kind of save cats, naturally. And so you are put onto these spaceships and you spring into action to rescue these cats from enemy humans. And you have a lot of tools at your disposal. And so it's about you picking up different gear, and the game does a really great job of letting you know exactly what you need to use to do the thing that you can use it for. So you find like a box of black pepper, and you're like, okay, if you throw this at a guy's head, he will start sneezing, it will stun him, and then you can run up and jump on his back and ram his head into the wall. Or, hey, you can find a metal bar, which you can just club a guy with, or, you find a variety of items that help you dispose of enemies. And some of this stuff happens in the environment. You can throw banana peels down, you can get soap on the floor that'll make them slip and fall. And so you have a lot of opportunities to deal with these guys. These guys have insurance policies in that their heads come off and fly to a regenerator where if you knock a guy out, his head will pop off and he will go respawn as a dude. And so you need to get in there, grab the head, and then dispose of it. And because you're in space, you're on a spaceship somewhere, you have like trash cans, but also you can just take the heads and flush them down the toilet. And so you have these heads in a jar that you're like cramming down these Japanese style toilets and flushing away. Or you can, I think, eject, there are windows on the ship, so you can shoot them and blow a hole in the wall, and the vacuum suction will kind of do the rest. all of those options really make the game fun to play very loosely. I think it would be, and I'm sure as the game gets more complicated and you know, there can be these very tense moments, but at the same time, I'm having the most fun with it just rolling and going like, I'm pick this up, I'm going here and do this, and then we're going to fucking hope for the best, man. And getting into bad situations is what makes that game so much fun for me, because you have to very quickly figure out a way out of it. And then once the humans are dealt with, you find the keys to unlock the cats, and then you leave. And there are more tools and things that you're saving up for, and so, you know, I haven't gotten too deep into it. There's a video, I put a video up on YouTube. You can go to, I think, guard.bike will get you to the YouTube page. And you can see some of it for yourself there. It's really neat. And it's probably the most I've connected with a Blendo Games game. It is super well written. There are really funny emails. Just the concept of like, okay, you're an insurance policy and you're just in this box in the spaceship, and so you just pop out of the box when pirates have taken over the ship, and then you go and, you know, knock them out and save the cats. The cats who are running the ship, by the way. Yeah, Snuffy McGee in the chat says it's very Heat signature. It is a first person game. It is not the same the same perspective as Heat signature, but definitely similar concept in terms of like you're making your way around this ship and doing this stuff. But it's fun. It's funny. You should really give it a look. Go check out the video I put up of it and go from there. If it strikes your fancy. It has Steam Workshop support, so in theory, players could be making their own maps for it, which I think has a lot of potential. If a community forms around that, I think that could be really neat. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Seth Rogen's in Call of Duty. Did you see this? They I've got hair in my mouth. I don't know what. Blah, 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 blah. They put Seth Rogen into Call of Duty. I think so. They had a delay, right? At some point a while ago, they delayed the starts of one of their seasons. I'm guessing that's what happened here, because they put Seth Rogen in on May 1st, and it's a weed-related event. And not only that, there's like another weed event starting, I think, this week. And so I bet all of their weed, because they remember they already put Jay and Silent Bob into the game along with Blunt Man and Chronic, and so they've been like doing like weed stuff for like a really. Some might argue that they've been doing weed stuff in Call of Duty for 20 goddamn years, and I would say that's impossible. It's really more like 15 to 17 years, but I get you. And so it's this really fucking strange thing where it's a separate mini battle pass inside of the season where you can buy it and you'll get like tactical Seth Rogen. And if you level up this miniature battle pass in time, you will get like shitty jacket Seth Rogen. The thing I'll say about it is that his voice lines they play to the character. I don't know. Like at some point, Seth Rogen was always this dude, right? He's always been this dude. He's always been this weed man. But like they went and wrote a bunch of dialogue or maybe he wrote it. But it seems very on brand. But it's a lot of the kind of typical like him going in a way that like I feel like he didn't always do. Like at some point, Seth Rogen got old enough to where now he just seems like a weird older weed man now, and it's just like it's a very strange. The whole thing just feels weird to me. And then pottery, yes, so you unlock like graphics, like little calling card graphics of him making pottery with a skeleton. Like the scene from Ghost, only it's death behind him. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? But like like the voice lines are like overly long in a way that at least makes sense. Like they let that stuff play out, and you listen to it and you're like, I don't know that I would say that this is like super funny, but like it's like, okay, I get like this at least makes sense. It's him saying stuff like, I heard there was a war on comedy, but this is ridiculous. Like some version of that. Like, but then there's a lot of that stuff, and a lot of it's just like a little bit too long. But like, I think for a guest character, I think that makes sense. It's in a way that like they don't do it with a lot of the other characters. And then he also does the like activating a score streak, throwing a tactical, throwing my lethal, in a way that like when they did the Snoop Dogg skin years ago, like it felt like Snoop Dogg didn't have enough voice lines, and instead all you heard from Snoop Dogg was him talking about like throwing a grenade, and it's just like it's fucking weird. I don't know, the way that they have built guest characters in these games, and their requirements for voice lines, because some of it needs to convey information, right? Because other players can hear it in theory, and so like you want to know when someone is like deploying my score streak. But it's such a it ruins it, except I think it works for the Seth Rogen character, or the Seth Rogen skin or whatever, because all the other lines are so long and dumb that the contrast of him having this like oh, that guy was trying to shoot me, or or whatever the fuck, and then also incoming lethal. I think it's really funny. I think it actually, like, it's terrible, but like in a way that works in its own sick way. But yeah, I don't know. It's strange. They need to figure out a new way to do voice work for guest characters in Call of Duty, because I think that like the formula shows too well, too clearly in a lot of this stuff, and I think again having the like. Does anyone who plays Call of Duty, other than esports commentators and people that are officially affiliated with the game, do they ever use the term score streak? It feels like that was something like they changed it from kill streak to score streak for a couple of reasons. One, because you get score from playing the objective, and so it's not purely just for kills. They at some point, Treyarch's version of it was like, oh, well, we're going to do it at 300 points, 700 points, instead of 3 kills, 5 kills, 7 kills, like original Modern Warfare was. They said, oh, at 350 you can do this, and at 4 you can do this, and at 700 points you can do this. And so they changed it to score streak. But that also felt like to me, that felt like a way for them to like change from a branding perspective to stop saying the word kill. And to start saying the word score. You know what I mean? And so because Treyarch was also doing the like Codcaster, in-game streamer cam, and all of these other kind of esports functionality, it felt like that was them trying to like pivot the game in a certain way for friendlier esports sponsorships or whatever. And so I don't know. All of that adds up to me really not liking the term score streak, even if it is technically correct in a lot of ways. But I think like having like we got Seth Rogen in here, and he says deploying my score streak in the like. I mean, it almost sounds like he's doing a bit, but it just kind of sounds like him just talking. So it doesn't feel like it's deliberate. I don't know. Maybe he felt it was ridiculous, and you can sense that a little bit, but it is ridiculous. It is. So I don't know, man. It's just a strange thing that has been a problem with a lot of their guest characters. The Jay and Silent Bob stuff, or at least Jay has that issue. Snoop Dogg certainly has that issue when they put Snoop into the game. Like his stuff sounded the most like, I got an hour. Tell me what you want me to read. Cheech and Chong were really bad with this stuff too. But that was just more conceptually the idea of Chong saying, "I'm reloading, man." Like, it's just like, this is, I don't know, man. It's just fucking strange. But I think it works. It works well enough for the Seth Rogen stuff. But it's like, I don't know. Do you like Seth Rogen? I did. I feel like at some point I was like, man, that's Seth Rogen. Man, Pineapple Express. What a hell of a movie. And then, I don't know, man, maybe I just saw too many interviews with him kind of post the interview. That like, it was just like, whatever, man. Whatever, man. All right, let's this is going to be our last break, and then we're going to get into the news. I don't know if you heard about this. Grand Theft Auto 6, they're going to do another one. They're going to make a Grand Theft Auto 6. So stay tuned. Come back. We'll come back. We'll talk about that thing. It's easy to start weird spending habits and not even realize that you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're just like, well, I'm just going to get a coffee. Like, what's a coffee? It's like $6. Maybe $6, like $9 or something now, right? It's like $7 or $8. You know, you're going to like, oh, I'm just, sign up for this streaming subscription and I'm just going to use it. And then you end up not using it. That stuff can add up fast without you even realizing that it's happening. Rocket Money is here to help you spot those patterns so that you can decide if you want all that stuff or if you want to do something about it and keep more money in your pocket. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. You can see all of that spending in one place, all of the kind of recurring subscriptions, or even just like your frequent, like, oh, I'm, this is how much money I'm spending on food or dining out or whatever, and get a sense by category that, like, hey, maybe you're going a little hard in one area, and maybe if you cut back a little bit here, you could do this and do that and save a little money here, and help you kind of figure out what you're trying to do and, what you can easily accomplish. Rocket Money's got a dashboard that gives you a clear view of all of those expenses. And you can get alerts if bills are, getting, more expensive, or if there's spending activity that they look at and go like, we don't know what this is. They'll let you know, maybe your stuff got stolen. Who can say? Or maybe you just, I don't know, you're like, I don't know, I need a Raspberry Pi 5. I need to buy one right now. Who knows? Either way, it's nice to get the alert and go like, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I don't know. I was up too late last night and things happen. They got that goals feature in there, so you can figure out like, okay, what can I set some money aside if I cut back on, if I make coffee at home, is it going to change this? And you kind of just get a better sense of how things are going. But what's really actually, awesome about Rocket Money on top of all that is that they will try to negotiate lower bills for you. If they look at your accounts and they see what you're paying for, like, I don't know, your phone or, like a satellite radio service or something to that effect, they might send you a little thing that says, hey, we think we can get the price of this a little bit lower. And you say, okay, sure, let's do it. You fill out some forms with some information about your account. And they go off and try to negotiate lower fees for you. They saved me a few $100s on one bill. And that was awesome. It was like, oh man, here's this thing I barely use, but I do need to keep it, and it's way too expensive. Rocket Money handled that for me, and that was sweet. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Download the Rocket Money app and enter the name put in the name of, they got a spot for the name of the show in like a survey. So, let them know the Jeff Gerstmann show sent you. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and tell them you heard about it here. Thanks. Bye. It's time for the news. Grand Theft 6 That is one of my favorite things. I found my receipt for Grand Theft Auto 3, the receipt from when I bought GTA 3 for the PS2, because they sent us review builds, but I wanted a final copy of the game, and so I ran out and bought one as soon as it was available. And I found my receipt, and it says on it, Grand Theft 3. That's how they had it entered in their system, which I think is just a really funny way to abbreviate. Like, I want to live in the alternate world where everyone just refers to it as Grand Theft 6. Grand Theft Auto 6 has been, they finally confirmed a release date, and it's next year. They have delayed the game out of this calendar year. It will be out in May of 2026, May 26th, 2026. To be exact, they put out I mean, you know they're serious because it's a black background screenshot of text that they posted to social media. All the cool brands are doing that. Grand Theft Auto 6 is now set to release on May 26, 2026. We are very sorry that this is later than you expected. The interest and excitement surrounding a new Grand Theft Auto has been truly humbling for our entire team. We want to thank you for your support and your patience as we work to finish the game. With every game we have released, the goal has always been to try and exceed your expectations, and Grand Theft Auto 6 is no exception. We hope you understand that we need this extra time to deliver at the level of quality you expect and deserve. We look forward to sharing more information with you soon. That was last Friday that they confirmed that. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg has said that, you know, like that basically everyone he was talking to internally at Rockstar or people around the actual development of the game, none of them actually believed the game was going to make it out in the fall from where it was at and where it was going and everything. So, you know, it's not, you know. But also the other part that he said is that since 2018, a lot of the working environment has improved in terms of just like crunch and all of that other stuff. So it's kind of cool that they're not grinding their people into dust this time. At least that's the sound of it. I mean, we'll kind of see when the game comes out, but Rockstar has traditionally not been a great company for that sort of stuff. But it sounds like when that blew up on them a number of years ago, when a lot of reporting came out about just how bad the working conditions were at Rockstar, it seems like that things really did change for the better there. And they always delay the game. So I don't know. I don't have like a big long breakdown of like, and then this, you know, I can't believe this is going to affect this and this and this. But I will say, yeah, sure, that makes sense. None of that seems out of the ordinary for the run up and release of a Grand Theft Auto game. So yeah, that'll be out, and I think they will make this date. I don't think they would have announced this date if they didn't feel quite confident about where they're currently at with it. So I expect we will see it actually release next May. And for them, I'm guessing that they probably have a lot of money coming in from GTA Online still, and so they're in a position where they can slip a game a year. And well, I guess considering they were saying fall, I guess maybe it's more like, you know, 6-7 months, whatever it is. But they're probably doing okay on that part of the balance sheet. Zatoichi says, has anyone checked in on the Benz lately? That game's coming out soon. There was a bunch of leaked footage of was it Mindgate? The Mindgate conspiracy? No. What is the name of that game? IO Interactive is publishing it. Mind something. It's not Mindgate. Mind's Eye. One word. Mind's Eye. Okay. Yeah, that is coming out. That's out next month, right? That's out pretty soon. Today, Rockstar released a trailer for Grand Theft 6, along with some paragraphs of text about some of the characters in the game. That trailer In case you're wondering, are people interested in Grand Theft 6, the next game in the Grand Theft series? That trailer did over 12 million views in its first 2 hours. It's a lot of people. A lot of people going and watching a GTA trailer. It's a nice looking trailer. Like the characters and the models and all of that stuff I think look good, and it kind of further establishes the tone of the game in terms of the two protagonists and the nature of their relationship and how all of that stuff goes. And I think it works in that regard quite well. The two main characters, there's Jason, was it Jason and Lucinda? Jason's voice, it sounds like his voice actor is 30 years older than the character looks, in a way that I think I found to be slightly off-putting, in like this voice doesn't fit this character like model super well. But that was kind of the only thing that really stuck out to me. Other than that, nice looking game. Some of the character descriptions, you got a best friend who's a conspiracy weirdo, as you do. You're making a game about Florida. You're gonna do Florida jokes, right? So I don't know. I think that works. That it's a nice looking trailer. You'll do pizza delivery missions and drive a taxi and drive a fire truck and whatever else you do in a Grand Theft Auto game these days. No, it's like you don't really get to, other than like, hey, you're gonna have a duo at your fingertips, and they do crimes. You kind of look at it and go like, okay, yeah, all right. I know what a Grand Theft Auto game is beyond this. So, like some people were like, I can't believe they didn't show any gameplay. It's like, what do you want to see, the back of a car? Like, what do you need? you know what the fuck it is. It says Grand Theft Auto 6 right on the goddamn box. You know what the fuck it is. You're going to do missions for people. You're going to work your way up some kind of criminal chain. You're going to get fucked over at some point by somebody and maybe get revenge on them. Maybe not. And you'll probably have a bunch of weird side missions that you'll do and be like, yeah, okay, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do all of these car races. You'll say at some point, boy, there sure is a lot of racing in this game, and I don't think I'm going to do the rest of it. Right? That's, I hope that there's, I'm not saying that necessarily as like a bad thing. I'm saying that as like, yeah, it's been a long time since there was a Grand Theft Auto game. Also, there are way fewer Grand Theft Auto knockoffs these days. And so it's been a long time since I've played a game like that. And so I'm like, yeah, I look forward to abandoning the racing side missions halfway through and doing something else. And that looks like it'll probably be an all right time. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious to see again, like for me, the trajectory of a lot of GTA games has been this point of they're constantly refining the controls in ways that, like, when you go back and you play GTA 3 or even Vice City to a certain extent, the shooting is borderline unacceptable today. And by the time they got to like GTA 4, they had like figured it out. And you're like, okay, no, this is starting to feel like it controls like a regular video game. And GTA 5, I think, controls really well. So, we'll see what kind of changes they make on that front. I think that's stuff that I'm very interested in. What are the things that you can do in this game moment to moment? And what improvements have they made on that front? Because I think there's still room for them to get better. The rest of it is just like, is the writing good? And I think that, the characters and some of the stuff that we saw in that trailer, I think looks interesting and compelling. So, I don't know. I think it looks fine. And, and also it's a year off, so who cares? Like, there's just going to be so many games coming out between here and there that you can worry about Grand Theft Auto 6. Give it, give it 9 months. And then you can be like, oh shit, GTA is coming out soon. I think that's the right way to do it. One of the video games you'll be able to play between now and the release of Grand Theft Auto 6 is called Gears of War. Have you heard of this? It's a guy, okay. It's a guy. He's got like a do-rag on. And he's got a buddy. And they're in a war. And they have guns with chain. They're football guys. They look like football players. Bulky, thick dudes holding bulky, thick guns with chainsaws attached to them, fighting weird monsters that come up out of the ground. Grand Theft Auto is coming to the PlayStation 5. This summer, it will be as part of a multi-platform release called Gears of War Reloaded. This is going to be Gears 1 re-released again. If you own Gears of War Ultimate Edition on the Xbox, they are going to send you a code for Gears of War Reloaded for free, which I think is the right thing to do on account of they've already re-released this game. But it is not just that game. I think they're probably starting with that version of the game as a foundation for what they're about to do. But this is going to be a game that can run at 4K. The multiplayer mode will run at 120 frames per second if you are so equipped. The campaign will be 60 frames per second. HDR support, spatial audio, variable refresh rate support, new textures that have been, 4K assets and remastered textures is actually how they phrase it. So remastered textures could mean anything. Whether a human is going in there and touching them up, or they're just like, click the upres button and let the cloud do the work. Enhanced post-processing visual effects. 0 loading screens during campaign. That's something. I mean, that game was so much about the walk and talk to hide load times already that, they were already pretty good at hiding loading. But anyone who owns the Ultimate Edition on Xbox prior to this announcement, which was yesterday, will get a free copy of this when it comes out this summer. Otherwise, it will be $40 on August 26th on Xbox Series X or S, Xbox Cloud Gaming, Steam, and the PlayStation 5. Of note in this announcement, this is, I believe, the first time they have used the phrase Xbox PC. When they list the platforms it is coming to, they say Xbox Series X and S, Xbox PC, Xbox Cloud Gaming, PlayStation 5, and Steam. Normally, I believe they had said Windows PC there. Which I think is always like kind of a weird thing because, like Xbox PC is probably cleaner branding across the board and it means that it will show up in the Xbox store on PC. Because they're also obviously the game is coming to Steam. Bananas Maximum wants to know, will Windows Store Ultimate Edition owners get a free upgrade code or Xbox only? This was a pre-Play Anywhere title. That's a great question. I will scroll to the bottom of this thing they put out. As a token of our gratitude to longtime fans, Gears of War Reloaded will be a free upgrade for players who purchased the digital version of Gears of War Ultimate Edition prior to today's announcement. A code for Gears of War Reloaded will be delivered prior to launch of the game via a direct message to eligible Xbox accounts. So it doesn't. So I'm gonna look through the rest of it to see if there's any. It says for Xbox fans a thank you. So, but if a PC is an Xbox now, then shouldn't PC owners get it also? It's not. It is not specific. They do not immediately answer that question. It just says Xbox fans who own the digital version will receive a free upgrade to Gears of War Reloaded. But it doesn't say which digital version you need to own to qualify. The game will also appear on Game Pass, of course, and so on and so forth. It will have cross-play. So if you want to roll around and shoot each other with shotguns, like don't get me wrong, man. Gears of War 1 was a hell of a game when it was released. Even when they did this Ultimate Edition, it was like fun to return to it. I don't know that I don't know that I especially want to go back to this campaign again. It feels a little soon, even though we're talking, I believe it's 10 years or so since, maybe it's, anyway, it's been a while since that Xbox One version of Gears of War 1 Ultimate Edition was released. So, but it's the 20-year anniversary, and it's something that they can put out on PlayStation, which I think is kind of interesting. They also talk a little bit, we talked about it with Forza, but they talk about the Microsoft account a little bit here. Gears of War Reloaded is built for shared play, whether you're teaming up in split screen or jumping online. The campaign supports 2-player co-op versus multiplayer, allows up to 8 players with cross-play across all platforms. You and your friends can squad up no matter where you play. No Microsoft account required. However, signing in with a Microsoft account unlocks full cross-platform functionality. It enables cross-progression, so your campaign and multiplayer progress carries across devices. It also allows you to send invites and play with friends across platforms like Xbox to PlayStation or Steam to Xbox. So it sounds like you can get into crossplay stuff if you don't connect to a Microsoft account. But if you want to actually do any of the invites or any of the things that are built around the Microsoft account, which is an Xbox Live account, but they can't call it that when it shows up on PlayStation, I guess. It's weird to see them rebrand it as Xbox PC while also rebranding an Xbox Live account as a Microsoft account. I guess it's a weird double switch. The Bret Hart and Steve Austin of branding changes. I don't want to play the Gears of War multiplayer. I have felt that way, I think, since Gears 1 came out. There was I was very interested in it out of the gate, and then it became very quickly obvious, and I've said this, I've certainly said this more than once, that I don't like the things you have to do to be good at Gears of War in a competitive setting. I don't like the rolling around. I don't like the shotgun stuff. It's not for me. Like the high level Gears of War play, you look at it and you're just like, fuck this, dude. So as a result, Gears of War 1 only having that mode is a little less interesting. Horde mode and some of the stuff they did in the later games was incredible. Like they did some amazing co-op stuff in the following Gears of War games. I would think that eventually we would get Gears 2 and 3 and beyond on some kind of re-releases there, but I don't know. I would have thought that this would have been a release of the trilogy or something, because part of this is they're saying like, oh, as we approach the 20th anniversary of Gears of War in 2026, we're reflecting on blah blah blah. But also maybe this is just to kind of seed the cloud, like they're going to release the new Gears of War across all platforms, right? E-Day is going to come to everything, probably day one, right? And so putting Gears of War 1 out and then saying, hey, this is the prequel to that game is probably all they need to do from a story perspective to set people up to, appreciate whatever the hell E-Day is doing when it comes out probably next year. At this point, if this game is coming out late August, I think that to me is like a final kind of nail in the like Gears of War E-Day in 2025. Like, nah, nope. They will save it for the following year. And then you will have played Gears of War 1, and then when E-Day comes out and it's prequel, you'll be like, okay, I get this. It's the guy with the do-rag, but now he's got hair? I don't know. The secret is he always had hair. Anyway. Gears of War was a great game. The other thing I think that is maybe an interesting conversation point that I'm not going to have right here, right now, is does anyone care about Gears of War anymore? I felt like when the last one came out, it was a good game, but like I don't think Gears of War is bringing people in the way it maybe used to. It is not maybe the marquee franchise that it once was, and so, you know, the interest and like the only people interested in a new Gears of War are probably some old motherfuckers at this point. And so, you know, I don't know. I'm curious to see how Gears E-Day is received. I do think it's kind of crappy that they are making a prequel when the previous Gears of War game kind of ended on a cliffhanger. The other thing I would say is I don't know that I actually care enough about the Gears of War story beyond 3 to want to see that cliffhanger resolved. It's like they left it hanging and you could clearly make a new game based on that stuff, but also like, whatever. Anya, we're not going to make a prequel. Who the fuck cares? She's got the necklace. It doesn't matter. But I like Gears of War, and it'll be interesting and fun and weird to play it on a PlayStation 5. There was so much talk. It was around the release of Gears 3. I guess it was before Judgment. Was it maybe after 3 was out? There was talk that like, oh, the contract with Microsoft has been fulfilled for Gears of War. And so now Epic is free to do with it as they will. And thus, the next Gears of War is in development for PlayStation 3. And that was like very widespread talk at the time. And then at some point, Microsoft just acquired the Gears franchise from Epic and said, nope. And that was that. Since then, there was like there's a build that leaked that's floating around that I think people are unclear on what that is. The leaked build of Gears 3, as I understand it, was something they were merely doing as just Unreal Engine testing on that platform. It was not an indicator that they were definitely going to release Gears 3 on PlayStation 3, which would have been weird because a lot of the PS3 Gears talk was after that anyway. And so it was sort of a, like the timing doesn't quite line up there for that to have been something they were developing in full. I'm pretty sure, and this is what people were saying at the time when the Gears 3 stuff leaked. It's like a full-on build that you can get your hands on and play on if your PS3 is funky, you can make it run this Gears 3 thing. But it's not a complete version of the game. It's like it's extremely like, it was something that they seemingly were doing to continue to test getting the Unreal Engine up and running on PS3, or continuing to work on updates for the engine. That is how it was told to me at the time, and that seemed to line up with the timing about everything else at the time. But it's all a bit of a blur at this point. It's just funny more that Gears is coming. This will also they went out of their way to mention cross progression and having that tied to the Microsoft account, which is something that Forza does not do. But Forza is an older game being released on PlayStation 5 now. It's not like a fresh new release like the way Gears of War 1 will be. But you know what I mean? It's a new package for all platforms. It's not just here's the PS5 version of this game that came out a few years ago. And so they were already in a position where the Steam version of Forza does not cross progress with any other version of the game. And so rather than them doing that work to hook it all up, they just didn't. Whereas I imagine the standard going forward for Microsoft's cross-platform releases will be that you can cross-progress in the campaign and all of that stuff. That's a long-winded way for me to say You cannot just load up Forza and get all of your Xbox achievements unlocked as trophies, but I bet you'll be able to do that with Gears. So, we will see. Speaking of Epic Fortnite, they are doing a fun, silly dance after the court ruling that Apple has been very mean and very anti-competitive, and that Apple has to open up the iPhone App Store to alternative payment processors ASAP. This has resulted, this is the Epic lawsuit that has been going on for years and years, and Apple's going to appeal and so on and so forth. So we'll see. Maybe this ends up getting reversed down the line, but for right now, it is open. Like, that is the App Store is open for alternative business. And so Epic is they've offered a peace offering by saying, we're happy to put Fortnite back on the App Store, which is like the phrasing on it is just dumb, but okay. However, there has been a further update that will also impact the PC and the Epic Game Store on that platform as well. They've done a couple of things here. One, they have this concept of a web shop. And if you integrate the Epic web shop into your game, like let's say you want to take payments in your phone game and not have them go through Apple, because Apple charges you 30% to do so. They take 30% of your money when Apple processes your payments. If you can find an alternative payment processor, then you pay whatever that is. Epic, being oh so helpful, and out of the kindness of their heart, and not as a way to just like further stick a knife into Apple and maybe also eventually make some money along the way, they have launched web shops that will be ways for developers to integrate those types of payments into their apps quite quickly, from the sounds of things. And as part of that, the web shops, 0% store fee for the first $1 million in revenue per app per year. Starting in June 2025, for any Epic Game Store payments we process, developers will pay a 0% rev share on their first $1 million in revenue per app per year. And then after that first million, they will start taking 12%, which is they had been taking 12% on Epic Store purchases all along. Like that was their cut already. But now they're saying for the first million, you pay them nothing. And that is something that, from the verbiage here, I think that is something that will not just apply to mobile stuff. That is something that if you are shipping a PC game, then you will get all of your money on that first million, and then you will pay the 12%. Will that sweeten the pot for developers to make the jump? I don't know. The 12% should have, right? Like, you go look at the Epic Store, there are a lot of games on it now. Like, they're constantly adding. I get an email from them every week that says, here's a bunch of games that we have added to your account because we like you. And it's a long list of things that are also simultaneously launching on Steam. And so they're getting a lot of big releases. They're getting a lot of small releases. They're getting a lot of releases. Most of what you're looking for, I shouldn't say that. A lot of what you're looking for is launching on the Epic Store. But does anyone care? That's not, I don't get the impression that people are like interested in using this storefront. Obviously, Steam is a very entrenched competitor, and Steam is fantastic. And so, like, it just feels like no one is looking to use an alternative. And so this is them sweetening the pot for developers. But again, like, there are already a lot of games appearing on the Epic Store. This will probably get more developers to put their games onto the Epic Store, I assume. Because why not? Why wouldn't you? Other than it's probably, I'm sure that there is some support cost, right? There's probably some cost associated with, like, oh, there's one more storefront we need to support, and we need to make sure that our builds are doing this and that and the other. There's probably some ongoing cost there. I don't know. But it's probably not absolute zero. But if they're not going to take a cut for the first $1 million, and then after that, they're only going to take 12%, I guess you might as well. They have also launched the Epic Game Store on phones. I don't know if that's something that is available in this territory yet, but I assume that this change, well, they may still have restrictions. I don't think, it's not as open as the EU is. I don't think you can install alternate stores in the US. I don't think that was part of this ruling. And so that probably is not going to happen. But here's the web shops bit. In June 2025, we are releasing a new feature enabling developers to launch their own web shops hosted by the Epic Game Store. These web shops can offer players out-of-app purchases as a more cost-effective alternative to in-app purchases where Apple, Google, and others charge exorbitant fees. With new legal rulings in place, developers will be able to send players from games to make digital purchases from web shops on any platform that allows it, including iOS in the European Union and United States. As an extra bonus, players spending in Epic web shops will also accrue 5% Epic rewards on all their purchases. I assume that means you'll eventually get V-Bucks. I don't know. I don't know what the Epic rewards system is these days. And so, yeah. As a result of the court ruling, a few apps have rolled out, have tried to roll out changes, or they've halted changes in some cases. Spotify immediately pushed an app update that I don't know if that is live yet, but it was in approval. I think it has rolled out, where you can just pay Spotify directly and not pay Apple. That's something that used to be like a sticking point on a lot of different shops. For like, oh, we want you to sign up on our website because then we get more of the money, but then download our app and do this other stuff. And sometimes the people running the app store, like Roku, for example, those motherfuckers, would say, oh, we're not going to approve your app because we want you to offer subscriptions to your service inside of your app so that we can get our cut. And we were like, well, we're not going to do that. So if you want to know why that Roku app was so fucked for so long, that's why. So yeah, this is a big change, and I think it's a positive change for developers. This also seems like something that will have some sort of impact on the cost of iPhones going forward. If Apple's going to lose a significant chunk of their App Store revenue, at some point they're going to go, I guess we're going to charge $500 more for the phone on top of whatever tariffs is doing to these prices in the first place. Like it seems like it'll be maybe a zero-sum game for consumers going forward. Certainly better for developers, but I don't know. No one's going to be able to afford a new phone anyway. Patreon also did a hot update. The Patreon was in the process of making a lot of changes to their back end to support Apple's demands around this pricing stuff. Even though I think I looked, it's been a while since I looked. I don't think anyone that is supporting this broadcast over at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann is signed up through Apple's stuff. But it was a thing where Patreon had to make a bunch of changes to say like, oh, well, okay, like, we're going to have to charge more for subscriptions if they do it through Apple than if they do it directly. I think Patreon has halted a lot of the stuff development that they were doing, and that they are going to be trying to take advantage of that stuff as well. And maybe it all gets reversed on appeal. Who can say? But for right now, that stuff is open for external business. So we'll see how that all goes. I've been mildly jealous of people in the EU for a lot of reasons lately, but one of them was that they were able to install the alternative app stores on their phones and use more fully featured emulators and do a bunch of like kind of freaky shit that Apple is not down with. Apple's not down with freaky shit. You used to have to jailbreak your iPhone just to put a new ringtone on it. That was the only reason I was jailbreaking my phone for a good long time, is I wanted custom ringtones and text tones, and then like every year they would add like one new feature that I was like, oh, cool that's there. That's one fewer reason for me to jailbreak my phone. And then eventually they got enough like, okay, now you can make the FM Towns commercial noise your text message tone. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm done. I don't need to jailbreak my phone anymore because I can just do this and put that on there and it's fine. You heard of Half-Life 3? Hey, you guys. You guys ready for Half-Life 3? You guys want to take a ride and suck my wake? Videogameschronicle.com, which has a hot Patreon of their own, has a story here. They have summed up some YouTube discussion from one Tyler McVicker, which if you have been listening to video game podcasts for long enough, you know that that's the fucking lunatic that is, I mean, God bless him. That is the maniac that is digging through every single Steam and Valve update looking for things and finding stuff. Here's the hidden pieces of Team Fortress 3. Here's the, whatever. So there's further updates about a supposed Half-Life project that is supposedly codenamed HLX, and that is potentially Half-Life 3. Who could say? But basically, it's people digging through the code and finding different details about what else Valve is working on. That's nothing new. People have been doing a lot of that over the years and finding like leftover references to games in development and so on. But also it sounds like that there are some additional kind of leaks and information around this. I'm not going to tell you to believe this. Let's go through the information. The quote here is, HLX is being playtested so religiously and so widely that there are individuals that will just talk. I personally have a policy of avoiding any story-related questions or information where possible, so I currently have avoided all of them, but I've been offered it by people whom are trustworthy, and I know that some of my contemporaries have been given it, so there's information out there about the plot. He does also say that that HLX is not a VR game. There's been additional stuff in the code, in whether it's for Steam or whether it's for individual Source Engine games or what have you, where people have uncovered information about a product known as Deckard, which people are taking to be a VR headset that, much like the Quest, has the guts in it. It is some kind of ARM-based VR headset that will not require a connection to a PC to work, much like the Valve Index does now. So the theory is that, much like the Steam Deck exists as a piece of hardware, that, maybe Valve will have a standalone VR headset in its future. That would make sense if they are going to continue to care about VR at all, which you could go either way on. I don't know. That they would eventually do something to that effect. As such, though, this is McVicker is saying that Half-Life, this HLX thing, is not a VR game. And he's basically is saying that the game is playable start to finish. I think that's the actual piece of news here. This is the furthest it's ever been. The game is playable end to end, period. It's never been that far. They're optimizing it, polishing it. They're probably content locked, or if they're not, they're mechanic locked. There's been talk about there maybe being some kind of procedurally generated aspect of this game, whether it's, hey, you're going to have parts of levels that are made procedurally, and then the story is kind of laid onto those bones somehow. We'll have to wait and see. I think I've reached a point with this where I believe it, because I think enough time has passed. I think that there's just enough time has passed. I think if you see some of the things that that Gabe Newell has said more recently about, about why the game didn't happen and some of those things, I think there's a bit of an attitude shift in a lot of that talk. And I think it's been enough time. And I think there's been enough of like time since the big leak about what the plot was going to be and all this other stuff that I think a lot of the heat has died down. And I think a lot of the pressure is lower. You know what I mean? Like Half-Life 3, a big problem with shipping Half-Life 3 for a lot of years was that the pressure to make it was so high that it was like, well, what do you make? You know, like Half-Life 2 became this sign of like, oh, it does these things that games haven't done before in terms of physics and what have you, like the gravity gun and, you know, being able to spin the blade and cut the guy in half and, you know, like all of that stuff became this like, this is the way games are now and they're never going back. And you're like, yeah, no, I don't think that happened. I don't think that Half-Life 2 was quite as influential in that department as people think about it now. I mean, certainly physics became a big deal in games, physics and everything, you know, like all these things happened, but it didn't become the end all be all in all of games for a good long time. So, but also like it gave Half-Life 2 this reputation as like, it's got to do something new. If we're going to make a new Half-Life, it has to do something new. And what is that going to be? And so I think the pressure on Half-Life 3, both externally and internally, became this like impossible goal to meet. And so it becomes very easy to say, we don't need to make it at all. If the game doesn't meet these impossible to meet standards, then we're not going to make it. And so they didn't. I think it's as simple as that. But I think like now, I don't know, man, people hang loose a little bit more these days. In so far as I think that there are a lot of people who just don't give a fuck. They're just like, yeah, man, I don't make it. Whatever. I think there are people who are a little bit more normal about it these days than they were 10 years ago. You know, there was a time when the game they were referring to as Half-Life 3, I think was a VR game. You know, before it became Alex, sometime between making Half-Life 3 and making Half-Life Alex, you know, like I talked to someone who did a Half-Life thing in VR and told me point blank, I played Half-Life 3. That was a very long time ago. And this was before Valve had VR headsets out for sale. This is how long ago that was. Before VR had really happened. So I don't know. I look at it and go like, yep, sure, you should make it. They should make it. What they should really make though is Portal 3. The actual thing they should be making is Portal 3. But if you got to make Half-Life 3 first to get that out of your system before you can make Portal 3, then do it. And I hope it's good. I don't know. Like I don't have a huge, I never really had a huge attachment to Half-Life. I just never did. They're okay. Those games are all right. But, but I hope they make it, you know, because I think it's a very different situation than like Duke Nukem Forever, where it was like, hey, we're clearly sticking to this game in a lot of ways. And we're keeping some of the things from that original game and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, I think that, you know, they probably have a more modern attitude towards Half-Life 3 than Gearbox had towards Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah, I think one of the other pieces in this, there was a bit saying Eric Woolpaw really wants to make Portal 3, and good on him. God damn it, Eric, go make goddamn Portal 3. Stop fucking around with this other stuff. No, but I'm that's yeah. I think that I would love to see a third Portal game. Whatever. I would love to see Half-Life 3 at this point because it would just be a very interesting game. It would be kind of interesting to see someone making a campaign-focused first-person shooter in 2025/6. Like, what the fuck even is that? You know, when you think about what Half-Life 2 was and what the episodes were and the way the episodes iterated on the concepts of, you know, with more open sequences and whatever else, you know, I think there's a lot of weird shit that I would just like to see what the idea was, what made it across the finish line, and will it have the ending that I think that game has to have, wherein Gordon Freeman is fucking trapped in some fucking thing, some palace of glass, and then he has to speak, and as he speaks, the entire thing shatters because the only thing that was keeping the Vortigaunt, who had all this fucking shit together, the only thing keeping it together was Gordon keeping his mouth shut. And as soon as he opens it, it turns out Gordon Freeman was the crowbar all along. And he breaks the entire world as part of it. I don't know. Let Gordon Freeman say the F word. And then Portal 3, man, that would be some business. Some people say like, oh, what about Left 4 Dead? Nah. I'm good. I don't need that. Like they should, whatever. I mean, yes, they should make another Left 4 Dead because I think there are people that would want that or whatever, man. But I don't. It's a co-op zombie game. Look at who you're talking to. Like, why would I be excited for a Left 4 Dead game? Think about it. But yes, I would love to see them produce a Half-Life thing and then make Portal 3. I think it's time. I would love to see, oh man, Portal 3. Portal 3 actually sounds kind of a little difficult from a writing perspective because I think Portal 1 and 2, the style of humor in those games, I think it was so good that people grew to fucking hate it. It became that type of quotable thing that became, as people just walked around talking about the cake and how the cake was a lie and all this other fucking horse shit. And the song at the end, and Jonathan Colton is this. Oh, did you know he has a cruise? Like, yeah, I know he has a fucking cruise. That all these years later, what is the style of Portal 2 comedically? Because I think a lot of it has become, those games are very, very well written and super fucking funny. But I think if Portal 3 came out and it was that exact style of comedy again, because they did the thing with the VR training and like that type of like, I don't know, corporate murder robot, like that stuff is just, they did a lot of it and it was very influential in a lot of ways, in ways that I think have kind of run their course. And so I'm curious I would be very curious to see, because Eric Wolpaw is like fucking hilarious. Like I think, I think if anyone would be capable of figuring it out, it's him. So yeah, man, I would love to see, like, that's just an interesting fucking thought problem. I think Aperture Desk Job does a good job of advancing that stuff to a certain degree, and that stuff still works. I guess that stuff still works, So yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see. I wonder if do you think they would keep the co-op stuff from 2 or like expand on it, or would they just be like, that was fun, but it's not our focus? I wonder if they would walk away from that. I bet they would. Echo the Dolphin. This was tucked into an interview that showed up on Xbox Wire, the official place for Xbox related news. They had a brief interview with the creator of Echo the Dolphin, Ed Annunziata, and he confirmed that they were going to remake the Echo games and then make a new one, which is pretty crazy. But this has been in development for a while. I think, like he's been in progress on that for some time. But it's a very quick quote. Gamatsu pulled it out of the interview. Me and the entire original team are going to remaster the original Echo of the Dolphin and Echo the Tides of Time, which was the second Echo game. Then we will make a new third game with contemporary play and GPU sensibilities. Stay tuned to echothedolphin.com. And echothedolphin.com has a countdown of like 8,000 hours, which works out to be... Oh, Gamatsu actually did the math here. April 25th, 2026 at 9 a.m. is when that countdown expires. There were already other Echo games, but so for him to say we will make a new third game, I think is kind of cool, because it's like, it's this acknowledgement of just like, oh yeah, they tried some other shit, but fuck that. But Brandon Sheffield on Blue Sky said that he had seen footage of a new Echo game on Ed Annunziata's phone a while ago, and so it seems like that this has been something that they've been working on in some capacity for kind of a while. We'll wait and see how that all goes. I don't know, man. Echo the Dolphin. I never got anywhere in Echo the Dolphin because I just would flip around and do cool flips and cool dolphin tricks and flip up out of the water. And then once I actually tried to play and progress in Echo the Dolphin, I was like, oh, I don't need to learn this weird alien story or whatever the heck this. Maybe I'm okay on this. So I don't know. If you ask me, do you like Echo the Dolphin? My immediate gut reaction would be like, oh yeah. But then if you gave me a few more minutes to think about it or prodded that at all, I would be like, well, I mean, I don't think it's good, but I think it's really fun to flip around and flip up out of the water over and over again, so yeah. Our last story, Genki, the manufacturer of accessories that was one of the first places to see alleged mock-ups of the Nintendo Switch 2, is being sued by Nintendo for what they did. This was at CES, right? They were at CES this January, so not that long ago, a few months ago. Genki had a booth and they were showing Switch 2 accessories, and reporters were asking them like, are these official? Do you know that this will work with a Switch 2? How do you know that this will work with a Switch 2? Like, what do you, and like, they were just answering, oh yeah, we got one. We got access to one. They were just like, fuck it, dog. Like they kind of just went for it. And said that they, that they had. So here, Video Games Chronicle kind of summed up this whole situation. That they were showing it at CES, and their exhibition page stated they were happy to discuss any Switch 2 info they may have, as well as the stuff they're making for it. At which point the CEO showed off 3D printed mock-ups and showed it to different reporters and said Genki had access to an authentic Switch 2, upon which they based the mock-ups, renderings, and 3D printed stuff. That is from the lawsuit that Nintendo was filing, because yes, they were telling reporters like, oh yeah, we got one of those. Yeah, we based it on the real thing. We know what the real thing was going to look like and shape and all this other stuff. And now Nintendo was like, oh yeah, you did? How'd you get one of, really? And so they have decided to file a lawsuit. They are seeking the destruction of all of Genki's Switch-related products. They're also seeking to recover all damages it has sustained as a result of defendant's infringement, unfair competition, and false advertising, and that said damages be trebled. They're looking for trebled damages, son. That's a lot of damages. That means times 3. So, the damages and infringement and all this other stuff, this is probably, I imagine where Nintendo will hang their lawsuit is that, hey, we license out the ability to make official peripherals to companies, and we give them access to our prototypes and what have you, so that they can make the stuff that they need to make. And that what Genki did is unfair competition because they got illegal access to such a device. And that I assume that is what they will claim. Genki's response to the lawsuit is they say, we're taking it seriously. This is a public statement. What we can say is this: Genki has always been an independent company focused on building innovative gaming accessories for the community we love. We're proud of the work we've done. We stand by the quality and originality of our products. While we can't comment in detail, we're continuing preparations to fulfill orders and showcase our newest products at PAX East this week. We're grateful for the overwhelming support we've received so far. We'll share more when we can, but for now, we're going to stay focused on doing what we do best: building gear for gamers. It's like their statement is like, you may have heard a lawsuit, but I'm just going to keep on playing video games. It's just like such a, I mean, what else are you going to say, really? But as for me, I'm going to keep on gaming. So, yeah, I don't know. When they were brazenly talking about having mock-ups and 3D printed Switch 2s and all this other stuff, and when asked by reporters if it was like real or not, they seemed to just be like kind of maybe not coming right out and saying it, but basically stopping just short of saying like, oh yeah, we got our hands on one and took a bunch of fucking molds and now we're making stuff or whatever. It's at the time it seemed like, oh, these guys are going to get fucking sued. And yes, sure enough, they are getting fucking sued. So we'll see how that goes. Why don't we get into some emails? podcast@guard.bike is the email address. You can send in your emails to me. I will read them. And then some of them will get read on the show. That is my promise to you. Brandon writes in and says, I find myself missing the days of booting up Call of Duty with the boys and having a good old time casually shooting people. I stopped buying Call of Duty after the Modern Warfare 2 remake because I got too invested in the weapon camo progression system for a game that only lasts a year. 3 months for my friends. Are there any good casual shooters in the same vein as Call of Duty that are supported, have an active player base, and won't become obsolete in 12 months? P.S. The boys won't download Combat Master. I've already tried that. Yeah. Okay. So I would say if you are not married to Team Deathmatch and those sorts of modes, then I think you should just get into Fortnite with the boys. Because, you know, that Fortnite stuff doesn't get obsolete. I don't think. Toad Song says, get yourself some new boys. Yeah. Pull a Dalton Castle. Get you some different boys. Stumblebee says Halo is free to play. Yeah, you could get into Halo. I think Halo can be relatively casual. Pat Bear says my crew still dips into Helldivers 2. I might say Helldivers 2 is not a thing you would do casually with the boys, but I guess you sort of could. Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted to say Fortnite because it's free to play and the stuff doesn't expire. But the other thing I would say is if you were playing Warzone inside of Call of Duty, then you could still use, I think you would still be able to use the guns and camos and whatever that you used in the Modern Warfare 2 remake. Because that stuff doesn't expire annually the same way that it does in the paid game. I'm sure those Battlefield games are super cheap, and it's not like they ship one of those a year, but also they're probably going to ship a new Battlefield game next year, so maybe it's not a good time for you to get into a Battlefield game and unlock a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's there's kind of nothing quite like it. I like Combat Master because it is a fucking ridiculous take on the Call of Duty style of modes and combat. And so if you're staunchly against the idea of playing a battle royale, then I don't know that there are a lot of great options other than Call of Duty out there. There's none that I would go to. That's what I would say. Like, sure, you could get into Apex, or you could get into Counter-Strike 2 or something, or there's like plenty of other shooters out there. But I think there is a certain casual nature to Call of Duty. That's how I play it. Some people think, when I bring this up, there are always people that are like, no, Call of Duty is a serious game. Like, no. Call of Duty is fucking Seth Rogen with fucking a weed skin on, and you're shooting fucking the lady from Diablo, and you're, like, it's not, like, yeah, I don't know. People do esports with it, but that's their problem. Don't make it your problem. And so there isn't, I don't know, there for me, there kind of isn't a good replacement for that. And it's just, it is just a very casual, fucking laid back competitive game. And that's the thing I like about it, is you can just like fucking knock out a few matches and go like, all right, cool. And that's that. It doesn't have to be as long or as tense as a battle royale can get. I think if you start doing well at battle royales, you start naturally taking them more seriously in a way that isn't always fun. And I think that's kind of a bummer. But I think the changes they made to Warzone in terms of how the inventory works and everything, and they made it really simple. Danagen says, what do you think about Rivals? Isn't that casual? I don't want to play a hero shooter, period. I don't want to play Marvel Rivals. I don't like Marvel Rivals. If you are open to the idea of that type of shooter, that type of Overwatchy kind of thing, Marvel Rivals is incredibly well regarded. The people who are playing it seem to really enjoy it. It does absolutely nothing for me. I've heard some of the ladies in it are pretty hot. It doesn't really do anything for me the same way that Overwatch doesn't do anything for me anymore either. And it was actually one of my issues with Marathon, is that it has locked in character classes. You can make changes to the loadouts, and there are definitely things you can equip, but it's very much like you pick a character and he's got a look and he's got a voice and he's got abilities. So it's like they're trying to make a hero shooter, extraction shooter, and that's like 2 strikes right there, dog. So yeah, I don't. It's why I view what is it, like Black Ops 3 and 4 as like those are the dark years of Call of Duty in a lot of ways, because those were the years where they tried to make it a hero shooter on top of everything else. And so if you are open to that, then yes, I would say absolutely check out Marvel Rivals. It seems like people fucking love it. I don't know. Or, I don't know. Overwatch isn't necessarily a bad game. People are just tired of it, right? So there's that might be an option as well, but like I'm just not interested in that type of shooter. Like it was almost something of an anomaly that I enjoyed Overwatch 1 as much as I did, because it was kind of in spite of what the game was. It was like, I'm having a good time. I don't like this type of game at all, but like, we're having fun. And then I uninstalled it, and that was that. I had my fun with it and then looked the other way. But yeah, maybe that would work for you. Maybe like a Marvel Rivals would be the right move there. Brandon from San Marcos, Texas writes in and says, I was playing Indiana Jones on my 5.1.2 last night, and I often stop myself playing newer games like this because the Atmos sound effects are so realistic and so immersive. Do you work for Dolby? Did you write in? It's so immersive that I get spooked. that something is actually fallen over in the corner or that there's something flying above my head. I remember you once said that you don't care for spatial audio. Have you ever tried a full discrete system and not just virtualization with headphones or a sound bar with bounce effects? It's always been weird to me that you're very serious about audio, but very dismissive about this new 3D audio tech. I mean, I had a full 5.1 setup when, you know, like I went out and bought a full 5.1 setup when the original Xbox was out. And it was cool because you could hear the cars coming up behind you in Burnout, and that was neat. I think to me, in a lot of the situations with that type of audio was always like, most people don't have the gear for it, and so a lot of games weren't mixed very well for a 5.1 setup. And so I used that for a long time and had my subwoofer, and it was like, oh, this is cool. It's fucking loud. That's neat. But I don't have the room for it anymore. When we would, you know, like I had all that stuff set up when my wife moved in, but it was set up in the bedroom because that's where I played games. And so, you know, once you're living with other people and stuff, the idea of a 5.1 setup in the bedroom is a little silly. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of just sort of, I am not going to hang speakers. Like it is purely a, what I'm going to do with my rooms and not do with my rooms. I am not going to hang a bunch of fucking rear speakers or have rear speakers on poles or have, you know, any of that fucking horse shit. I'm just not going to ever do that again. I couldn't do it now with kids because they would be not, you know, if I had speakers on poles over here as rears for the TV that's right here, A, it wouldn't work because I'm facing this way when I'm playing PC games. And B, they would be knocking the speakers over. It would be, I'm not going to run wires through the fucking ceiling. I'm just not going to fucking do that shit, dude. And so it's like a hassle, and it doesn't feel like it's always worth the payoff. I have checked out sound bars a few times over the last 6 months and been like, oh, maybe it'd be cool to have something like, it seems like the way Dolby Atmos works these days with some of the things they can do with a sound bar and some of the things you can get away with actually sound like they're pretty neat. And so I do occasionally think about getting something like that. But I will never have rear speakers. I don't care if they're wireless. I will never have rear speakers again. I am just not. Ugh. No, thank you. And increasingly I find myself using headphones more. I was not a headphones guy, and then, you know, I had to start playing games in houses that had sleeping children in them, and so I use headphones a lot more than I used to. So yeah, like I think it's like another reason why I'm just, you know, I'm not in a situation where I could have big weird loud speakers anymore, and that's unlikely to change. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's not like, and then the 3D I bought, you know, I have a pair of the whatever the PlayStation headphones that they, you know, put out that you can plug in and do your ear stuff and do the 3D audio. I tried that a few times and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It kind of does the thing they're saying it does. Sure. I sent pictures of my ears to the company that Activision partnered with for Call of Duty. I didn't even send them to Mark Cerny. I sent them to this other weird company and then paid them like $12. And used the spatial audio option in that game. And I was like, oh, this seems like I can hear it. Like, yeah, it's interesting. But I don't watch enough movies, and when I do, I don't watch them super loud, and I don't watch, so it's just like, I'm just not engaging with that content in a loud way often enough to ever want to fucking set up speakers, man. Ugh. If I was going to get speakers, I want 2 really big fucking wood fucking house speakers. I want silver stereo equipment from the fucking late 70s. And I want to play that shit loud. That's all. spatial audio for like music is always like really funny. Like they've been trying to do it a number of times, and some musicians decided they were actually going to mix their records that way on purpose, as opposed to it being done after the fact in a really fucking strange way. And that whole thing is just, it's neat that it exists. But if you ever hear me talking about fucking SACDs, kill me, because the real me is already dead. Let's see here. Tyler writes in and says, we need a side grade generation. We've talked at length already about the challenges we've seen on the development side this generation. Games take longer and cost more to make. Many developers have evidently struggled with the technology, releasing games with poor optimization and performance. I think of how a developer like Naughty Dog released their new games for the PS3 and might only release one. It released 4 new games for the PS3 and might only release 1 for the PS5. Now that we're 5 years into the generation, we're seeing price hikes on consoles and games that in some cases that weren't selling great to begin with. There's been reports on Sony and Microsoft targeting 2027 or 2028 for the next generation. I don't see how that happens at a consumer palatable price if we assume the usual increase in raw power. It feels like the industry as a whole needs to catch its breath, and I think we're having a side grade generation. I think having a side grade generation could go a long way towards that. Nintendo did this already, and while they have their own issues, they've been able to find success and have managed to release software at a decent clip with reasonable budgets and to both commercial and critical success. Microsoft seems well positioned to do this with their focus on Xbox Anywhere. Sony might be in a tougher spot as they've really leaned into the high fidelity prestige types of games, and there's an expectation that they stay on that path. What do you think? So I think that a lot of this is probably the topic of ongoing conversations internally at both Sony and Microsoft. Because I think that recent occurrences around, the supply chain already being what it is, and prices on GPUs, prior to all of this, and a lot of the pricing around everything has already been kind of messed up. When you factor in tariffs and a lot of the other things that are going to strain that even further, I think you end up in a situation where you start to ask, like, okay, like, could we feasibly release a console in 2027 if this environment lasts? If this is still the situation we're in 2 years, would we be able to release a console? Would we be able to get it into the United States at a reasonable price? Would we be able to sell it at and I think I look at it, and to me, with the way things are right now, you extrapolate that a few years forward. If it stays like that, then I think it's impossible. Think about the pricing of the Nintendo Switch 2 compared to the Nintendo Switch 1, and now look at a $600 Xbox Series X and think, if they're going to release a new console, they either need to price it significantly higher than the Xbox Series X, or they need to significantly cut the price of the Xbox Series X. Are they going to come along and say, all right, I guess this console is $849.99? Like, are they going to come out and, like, is someone going to ship a Pro console for $1,000? Will the PS6 Pro be $1,000? I don't really think that's... I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that that's I don't think that that's a market anymore. I think that that's I don't think that's a mainstream market anymore. And there's been a lot of talk recently about this notion that people are getting priced out of video games by a lot of these external pressures, be it the tariffs or be it, just kind of where supply chains are at, and availability of products and the economy in a general sense, and whatever else. But like Microsoft getting out there and saying the Xbox Series X is now $600. a console that is not the lead console, that is not able to say like, we know you want this, motherfucker, so it's $600 now. Haha. Like, it's not good. That doesn't say good things about where we're at. As a society, like whatever, right? It's a bad situation to be in. And so when you start to roll that forward a few years out and start to think about like, oh, what are the next generation consoles going to cost and when are they going to come out? Like, we live in a world where the PS5 Pro just came out for $700. So you've got, but also the regular Xbox Series X is now $600. And the PS5, maybe it'll follow. I don't know. Like, maybe it'll stay at 500. Maybe it'll go up again. It's everything is on the table. I'll put it this way, everything bad is on the table right now. Bad things are on the table right now, and everything on the table is bad. There are no like great things on the table right now. So, we think about how generations used to be where prices would get cut. The consoles would become more mainstream as a result of the price cut. More people would come in through the door. They would buy a bunch of games. They would, developers would see spikes in their sales because the console would become more affordable and, all of these kind of knock-on effects that would trickle down all through the industry. And now we're seeing the opposite. Now we're seeing console prices going up. We're seeing them hold firm. We're seeing an environment where that stuff isn't happening anymore. And so, people that were already priced out of a $500 console when they launched, well, guess what? Now the economy is worse and that same console is now $600. Whoops. Like, holy shit, what? It's fucking fucked. And it's a bad situation for the entire ecosystem surrounding video games, whether you are covering video games or whether you are making video games. Like, it's if the price to entry has risen that much, then you're going to see fewer games selling. You're going to see, and on top of that, GTA just got delayed a year. So people that were hoping that this year we were going to see some money come back into games, the Switch 2 will probably do really well, and it will bring some money back into games. It'll bring some excitement back into games. But I think if you were looking for just like an overall industry number that'd be like, oh my gosh, maybe that won't happen now, right? If GTA is not coming out this year. A double whammy of the Switch 2 and GTA 6 would have been an interesting, it's an outlier, and the following year probably would have been down as a result, but but that would have made for an interesting year in terms of overall industry size and dollars and blah, that other stuff. But I don't know, man. Like, the other thing that happens is I think you have a lot of players that are just playing free-to-play games, and they're going to keep playing free-to-play games. And, that's a segment of the industry that is not going away. And the economics of that work out in a weird way, too. So, I guess what I'm saying is, you talk about a side grade generation, or like, do we see, more modest upgrades from the PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation 6 or something like that? I don't think that will be the case. Instead, I think what we will end up seeing is this idea of next generation consoles in 2027 or 2028. I would see that these things getting pushed off, and maybe you still see a handheld, like things that are going to like change up the market and be like a different market segment and what have you. I think you could still see something like that, right? If they're like, okay, this is going to be, we're going to make this move because we can make it for this amount of money, and we think that, it'll sell this and whatever, and it will be different. It'll be a different way to play the games we're already making. And so hopefully that will result in more people playing more of our games more often. But I bet what ends up happening is that, because of the economic environment, if it stays, right, the idea of next generation consoles will just kind of push out with it. It'll be like, oh, this is going to be maybe we see a 10-year generation, maybe we see a 12-year generation here, or something to that effect, right? But But yeah, maybe we don't see these consoles in 2027 or 8. Maybe it's more like 8 or 9, or maybe it's even 2030. Maybe we see the true 10-year generation this time out, if the economics don't change, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I think too many things are up in the air right now, and also I'm not an economist, so I don't know. But I think that like there's just a lot of stuff here that you go like, well, maybe if you push this out far enough, you could cut price on PS5. Maybe you get far enough out, you could start to, cut these prices in ways that attract more consumers and whatever else. But like right now, we're still on the foot of raising the prices. And raising the prices and releasing new consoles, I don't think that's compatible. Unless you want those new consoles to be really, really expensive in ways that will harm them at launch. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how it all shakes out. It's a real fucking mess. That's affecting more than video games, obviously, but like it's the sort of thing that I think it's very hard to. I think it's very hard to predict how this is gonna go. But it's bad now, and I don't think it's gonna be good soon. So I think if you're out there trying to figure out when you're going to start building consoles and all this other stuff, you maybe have to at least consider pushing that out another year or two. Also, I don't think users are demanding it. I don't think users are demanding more power right now. I think on the PC side, the availability is bad of like the high-end GPUs and what have you. I think, AMD is doing a great job of making like competitive products at more reasonable prices, and maybe that will end up kind of pushing things forward there. But like with the pricing there being what it is, and tariffs and stuff aren't going to help there either, do we see a freeze on technological progress when it comes to gaming tech specifically? In a way where you go like, okay, like what would we make at this point that's more powerful than this? What's the thing that's actually gonna, and do they have a good answer to that question? I don't know that they do. And you look at the performance changes between a 4090 and a 5090. I mean, granted, that's a specific weird top end of the market and not always a great indicator of the market at large. But like, I don't know, man. Like, look at the wide range of players playing across a wide range of devices and their expectations for graphics and what have you. This is why I said, and I think a lot of this got fucked up by some of the pricing and some of the things we're talking about. But the stuff I had said about the Nintendo Switch 2 a week or two before they unveiled it, that idea of like, here is a device. It will have some heat behind it, so it will probably sell quite well, first party games and what have you. Like, it creates this potential opportunity for developers to sidestep a lot of what we're talking about and just be like, you know what, we're going to make our game, we're going to target the Switch 2 and make sure it runs really well there. And then that will get us at a point where we know it can run great across a wide variety of hardware, both up and down. So if you have a PC and you're still running like a 970 or, some, old GPU, like maybe you can still run our game. Like everyone's going to take on the like, South Korean fucking internet cafe model for game design. They're going to take on the Valorant. Like, why do all the effects in Valorant look like fucking dog shit? And you're like, oh, right. Because they're trying to make the next Counter-Strike. And one of the benefits that Counter-Strike benefited from is that it was an ancient game that could run on fucking anything. And so do you see more of that attitude across games and across game design and game developers? And, first parties, Sony's going to continue to have to make the first party games that it makes. But not everything they make is going to be able to be that big and that lavish and that high budget, right? They're going to have some games Saw something yesterday. They're going to have some games that are, be coming out over the next year or a little bit here that are not going to be gigantic, big AAA games, because they've got to maintain a balance as well. And they've got to get things out there more frequently than they are to continue to support their platform. I think Microsoft has been doing a really good job of shipping a lot of stuff. Like they've had a lot of stuff out lately. You can't deny that company's been having some stuff. And a lot of that is because they delayed so many games for so long that they finally stumbled into a really good year. And the games are of a quality, right? I think, like you look at Avowed, you look at Indiana Jones, you look at the stuff that Microsoft and Microsoft owned studios are shipping over the last 6 to 9 months. You're like, oh yeah, look at that. Look at you guys getting it done. But they had a very long, very dry spell that hurt them quite a bit, I would think. But we'll see how that all shakes out. But I guess my point is it's all fucked up, and a lot of this is uncharted territory. But it would not shock me to see Sony and Microsoft try to squeeze as many years as possible out of these devices that they already have on the market, because I don't think that the demand is there. I don't think anyone's playing a PlayStation 5 and saying, this fucking old ass thing, what the fuck am I doing? I need, they need to release something new. Because I don't even think the PS5 Pro has a great audience. That didn't seem to, and anyone who is feeling that way, they're going to try to put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to build a PC. So that high end exists there in that kind of weird way. But I don't think anyone that's buying an Xbox or buying a PlayStation 5 is like going, oh, this thing is so gaming is being held back by these ancient devices. Like, no, because it hasn't really moved that far forward since 2020, right? I mean, what have we seen? Like a little bit more ray tracing in some more games. And that's a very easy thing to disable and do in a lighter way these days that, most games don't even take advantage of that stuff very well anyway. So I suspect that they're going to try and stretch and get as much out of these devices as they can. And I think the good news is I think developers are probably right there too, because they're not taking full advantage of the power that is available to them across all platforms either, because they have to make a bunch of games for a bunch of different systems and a bunch of different PC configurations and a bunch of whatever, right? I mean, you have the Steam Deck entering the fold too, being a relatively lower end spec in a lot of ways, but a potentially exciting one. And so you see developers optimizing for that when they can, and that's kind of cool too. So yeah, I don't know. It's everything's fucked. Everything's fucking weird. And I don't think the demand is there. I think that everyone that has hardware on the market right now would love to just keep selling it and not have to worry about what's next and not have to try to launch something into this environment. If and when this environment changes, then maybe they'll be ready with something. But I do think that it's just going to be a situation where the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be the most powerful device for console players for the foreseeable future. Because I don't think Microsoft is going to need to strike back with something more powerful unless it is a full-on next generation. And I don't think that they necessarily need to do that, because the Xbox Series X runs games well. It's a powerful enough system to run the majority of games that are actually being made today. And yeah, you see some trade-offs. You do your performance mode. You do your pretty 30 frames per second mode. You do your, we're turning off the ray tracing for this mode, but it's on here and it's here and it's like this and it's like this. And you do your Digital Foundry videos where you're like, the PS5 Pro runs Returnal at a much higher much higher resolution at all times. And you're like, that's cool. I mean it. That's cool. But is anyone going out and buying a console or anyone like, we gotta get out there and make it happen? Like, nah. Mason says the Series S is kind of a millstone around their neck. No, it's not, because the Steam Deck is still out there and the PC is still out there, and the vast majority of these games are coming to those platforms too. So the Xbox Series S lives in that same power band that you would want to try to support in some way with your minimum spec PC version. So it's not... The Series S does create more work for developers to make sure it runs a certain way on that device. It's not like zero. But to act like it's somehow holding video games back or holding everything else in an environment where the Steam hardware survey still says the number one GPU is like extreme, like it's like a 1650, it's like some old ass fucking card. Again, I just don't see a lot of demand for that sort of stuff. And the people that do have those demands, you can go out there and you can spend $4,000 on a GPU. They'll let you. If you can find one. So I think all of that adds up to, it's just what a fucking insane situation. Like it's unprecedented times, right? Let's see. Maybe we can do one more. Brian in Michigan writes in and says, and asks the question, did celebrities hosting podcasts ruin podcasts or save podcasts? As someone who's been listening to podcasts far longer than they've been in vogue, and Vogue has a podcast? Is it a MASH rewatch podcast? I would listen to En Vogue watching MASH. I want to know what they have to think about Klinger's latest antics, whatever that guy is getting up to, huh? Okay, sorry. I can't help but feel like their glory days were when people probably couldn't recognize a podcast host on the street. Yeah. So, I think about the rush of celebrities getting into podcasts was always very funny to me. Because I view podcasts as a thing you have to kind of dedicate yourself to. The advice I always give people when they say, what should I do? What do you do? How do you make a podcast successful? And my number one piece of advice is to do it and always do it and try to never miss a week, because people get in habits about the thing they listen to, and they put it on while they're riding their bike. They put it on while they're commuting. They put it on whenever, right? And so, you do what you can to not break that habit by so if you're making a podcast and you're like, next episode will be 6 weeks from now, whenever we get to it, it's pointless at that point. You're not serious about it. So that's the thing I've always said is you need to be in it to win it, if you will. But it's more than that, obviously, and it's easy to have a podcast that sounds reasonable. Have you ever seen some of these podcasts? You'll see it's 6 people. They're all on a variety of fucking terrible microphones, and they're all talking over each. They're all remote, and so you can't hear what they're doing because that's too many people for a remote podcast. The all over the place sound quality, blah blah blah. It's just this is fucking garbage. What are we doing here? And so I think, it's just get the gear is not super expensive. I mean, it's more expensive now than it was a few months ago, I guess. But, it is, try to make an investment in making it sound at least reasonably good. And that's not that expensive. You could record it on an iPhone as long as you're smart about it. As long as you're planning ahead for that and so on. But anyway, I think that those are the sorts of basics, kind of baseline thing that I would say to focus on. And so the number one thing when celebrities start a podcast is they're doing 40 other things. And so for them, it's always it's a limited engagement. And so that idea of the limited engagement podcast, which became extremely popular, don't get me wrong, more popular than anything I've ever done in a lot of ways, when they're what are the true crime, whatevers. for the next 8 weeks, we're going to focus on whatever the story, you know, like all that sort of stuff. But I think that like, the thing you run into, especially with celebrities, I've told this story before, but I just find it fucking funny. And also I think it really encapsulates a lot of what I'm talking about here. We had a call with Dr. Phil's people. Dr. Phil wanted to start a podcast. And Dr. Phil was a part of the CBS family. And so at some point, someone said, hey, there's a popular podcast over here in some fucking dark hole in the ground. Maybe you should get on the phone with them and talk about it. And so we got on the phone with a couple of producers for Dr. Phil. And they were like, yeah, we're looking at doing a podcast. You know, we're maybe going to do like, and I started rallying. I was like, well, the thing you should, you know, take it seriously. Like if you want to do a podcast and do it well, you need to take it seriously. Though and a lot of what I say is stuff that comes from radio. It is stuff that was proven when radio was big. It was that idea of like, okay, you know, if you're not doing a weekly or daily show on the radio, you're not doing a show on the radio. Like you need to, you know, it needs to be drive time. It needs to be here. It needs to be damn near daily, 5 days a week, or otherwise, why are you doing it? Like even weekly shows on the radio are frowned upon in some ways. Not for the weekends, but you know what I mean? You do like a Saturday night show, but I was like, okay, you know, you want to do it. You if you want to do it, really do it. And, you know, it might take a while to get it going. You might, you know, maybe you might get a year in before you hit your stride or something like that, but that's okay. Just keep fucking plugging away at it and keep getting better. And they're like, oh, no, he was looking at maybe doing like a 8 episode this or that. And I'm like, okay, cool. I have nothing else to fucking offer you. If you're going to come in and do an 8 episode thing, then just fucking put it out. Who cares? Like there's no, like what, you know, record that man talking into a microphone and post it somewhere, I guess, whatever. Like that's pointless. So I always looked at that stuff as like incredibly pointless. The idea of just like, because by 8, it'll take you a minimum of 8 episodes to get going in a way, like if you're just thinking about it from a business perspective, to build up something to a point where it is something that can get sponsored and it has enough listeners and viewers to really be cooking, you are going to need a little bit of time. Now you can get a launch sponsor and say like, oh, we're going to make a big splash with this Dr. Phil thing, but are you? It's a very crowded space out there. You know, it's going to take a month or something for people to even know that Dr. Phil is doing a podcast. And by that time, the ads on the first episode will be just about expired. So what are you going to do? You know, so it's yeah, I don't know. It was always these very short-sighted ideas about what podcasts really were and all of that I think are super dumb. And so I think a lot of celebrities come in thinking that that's how it's going to be. And it's not. I think if you really want to do this and really, really do it, you need to do it and keep doing it. And I like doing it, so I've kept doing it. You know? And that's why I think that like Conan O'Brien has been like pretty good in this space, is because he kept doing it. You know, it seemed initially that when Conan got in and it became this very big deal, I remember being like, this fucking sucks, man. It's like, I like Conan O'Brien, don't get me wrong, but like, these motherfuckers coming in here and fucking all this shit up. And I was like, okay, no, I guess like, okay. Like he seems like very serious about it and he's doing his thing and good on him. But yeah, I think a lot of, you know, you kind of need, I don't know, like to do a regular podcast to, you know, kind of need something to talk about. You know, this show is focused on current events. You know, it's a current events show about video games ultimately, you know, but you could just as easily do something that was about pop culture or whatever, you know, like all this other horseshit. If you're doing something that's about another show, then eventually that show runs its course and you need to find another show, right? If you're doing your match rewatch podcast, you get to the point where you're like, okay, are we going to do After MASH or not? Like, no, right? Like, we're not going to do it. Like, no one, it would be bad to do that, right? But then like stuff like Serial got super big, and proved that like the seasonal thing can work. But I think that came at the detriment to the podcast industry in some ways. A lot of the stuff like Serial comes in pre-sponsored, and they've been selling it out on the market for months and months, and they filled all their slots and what have you. And so by the time that thing airs, because they've already got an established track record, I'm sure that that's just how that stuff works, right? But I hate that. I don't know. Like I'm not a fan. The true crime stuff, the like all of that stuff, I think is really gross. And so like I think that that's been like a net negative on podcasting overall. But I don't know. I think they're kind of moving past that to a certain extent. I don't know. Like the podcast industry is in some ways not what it used to be. Like there was a high point there where like when The Ringer sold for X number of millions of dollars, when was it Spotify that bought it? There was a real land grab there. And so someone rolled up on me at that point and said, let's start a podcast company. And so that's, if there hadn't been a pandemic, I probably would have left at the end of 2020 and started a new podcast company. But then as I got deeper into those conversations, those people seemed like they just wanted to create something so that they could immediately sell it, just like The Ringer. And so, yeah, and Earwolf sold for all kinds of money because Earwolf was part of Midroll, which was an ad company, and then Scripps bought Midroll, and then Sirius XM bought Scripps or whatever it was. It was like 9 different acquisitions there that led to Earwolf being part of Pandora or whatever the hell it is. And so there was those couple of big acquisitions. There were people that were like, dude, this is a hot space. Let's get in and get out. And I'm not a get in, like as much as it would be fun and probably it would have been financially lucrative for me to like be wired this way. I am sadly not a get in and get out kind of person. I am a get the fuck in and stay in that ass kind of person. And so for me, starting a new company was more about like, okay, how do we make this sustainable? How do we make this real? How do we build a sales force? What are we actually building here? And so the couple of times I've been approached over the years to start something like that, one time it probably could have worked out, but it was weird in some other ways and it ended up just not making sense. And then this other one just seemed like the people I was talking to were very interested in making as much money as they possibly could, as quickly as they possibly could, and then moving on to the next thing. And that probably would have left me right where I was in working for someone else on like a 3-year contract and figuring out if that's what I want to do or whatever. Right. So I was like, ugh. So that didn't make a lot of sense. For me as a person, but I don't know, but the industry is not like that anymore. Like those types of acquisitions. Because remember, the other thing that happened is the fucking pandemic. And when that started, people stopped driving to work for a good long time. And so a ton of podcasts took massive hits to their listenership because suddenly no one was in a car anymore. And so like that whole thing really, I think that whole thing really fucked up podcasting. It really cooled off the acquisition fury that was happening around some of that stuff, the little gold rush there. And it really kind of cooled things off. And so I think right now everything I look at stuff and go like it is working its way back to stable and smart and like reasonable after years of being kind of strange and sort of fucked up. And that seems healthy. The company that I work with for ads seems really sharp. And they're really good people. I think they're some of the best people that I've worked with over the 5 or 6 ad networks I've worked with over the years. Like they really get it, and they've been a pleasure to work with. And but it's like it feels real, I guess is what I would say. It doesn't feel like, oh, there's a gold rush happening, there's a zillion fucking strange things, like, the market has become stable and real, as opposed to like, we think we're going to acquire this for way too much money because we're going to try to make it this celebrity is going to come in and do this. But like, yeah, you still have these weird outlier fucking insane things that happen, like what's their name, Ashley something, whatever, the Hawktua girl, like getting a podcast and then like being everywhere for a minute. But like, that was like, they made that with like Jake Paul's podcast company, and then that whole thing fell apart because she did a crypto scam. Haley Welch, right? That is her name. And then I think she came back, right? Like she finally kind of showed up again after like hoping that the heat had died down. I don't know how that works, but yeah. And then now she's not part of the like, whatever the Jake Paul fucking thing is. So she's out on her own now. And I don't know how well that thing's doing or how interesting she is or isn't or whatever. That video was funny. It was a good like 6 seconds or whatever. You're like, yeah, cool. All right. Does that make for a great podcast? I don't, I wouldn't immediately think so, but I don't know. Maybe she's super fucking funny. Maybe it works great. Maybe it's an awesome show. Maybe she's super funny beyond just that. I don't know. I will probably never know, but I wish her the best. But yeah, so you still have some weird stories like that. But like, I don't know, in that situation, it's like the Logan Paul, Jake Paul scumbag, like empire or whatever. So it's hard to, so who knows if that thing is even real or not, or whatever. So, or actually genuinely popular or being propped up by a bunch of insane bullshit. Who knows? Maybe it's just Saudi money all the way down. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for the question, Brian. And that's going to do it for the show. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We do this every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, live on Twitch. But then, the archive goes up everywhere. It's a podcast. It does what podcasts do. It shows up in RSS feeds around the world. This video version ends up on YouTube, so you can watch it that way. And that's where it's going to be for as long as for the foreseeable future, baby. So I don't know, like, follow, and subscribe, and do all that shit. And check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, where you can get an ad-free version of this show and a bonus podcast and so on and so forth. I will be back with you tomorrow. We'll hang out and I don't know, we'll play some video games. Like I said, I have been engaged with the new Doom video game. They sent that out, but I am not able to speak about it at this time. So we'll figure something. I'll find something to play that's not that. And we'll hang out. We'll do something. And I will also, of course, be back on Friday to rank some more 8-bit Nintendo games. And then I will see you again on Tuesday for the podcast. Have a good one. I'll see you next week. Bye.